Part 300. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3004. Rebirth of the starry sky giant mosquito. The cultivation energy above the superstar is quite astonishing. It's just that as a lower-level domain lord, the energy requirements are even more terrifying. For a strong man like Jia Yan, it seems that he does not practice regularly. In fact, he devours energy substances in the palace every day, which is why he can maintain the speed of practice. Other territory lords in the lower ranks showed their own magical powers. For example, today he saw that this giant tree was actually using other people's emotions to absorb power step by step. After an outing in the two towns on the middle level, they headed higher. After reaching the upper floors, Jia Yan was keenly aware that there were more happy tourists, and more tourists were getting sad and quarreling, or even flying into the sky and falling to their deaths from high altitudes. "I'm so happy, Sister Adisha, we should always be so good." The little fish also became ups and downs. If she hadn't noticed that there was a strong person interfering with her state of mind, I'm afraid even Jia Yan would have just regarded her abnormality as coming to an unseen scenic spot and started to become emotionally unstable. But it's different now. Welcome to stay. In a luxurious hotel, Jia Yan led two little girls to check in. The hotel is built on the strongest branches. Even if a natural disaster occurs elsewhere, there will be no danger here. The waiter who led them to the guest room said with great pride. In addition, the room you are about to stay in has hosted domain lord level experts before, or even more than one. I hope you can take good care of the environment inside. Is it great to have entertained a domain lord level? Adisha wanted to speak, but held back. Even Xiao Yue restrained herself from speaking because Jia Yan once taught her that strength should be concealed as much as possible under any circumstances, otherwise exposing one's strength will lead to unpredictable consequences. Even death is not impossible. After entering the room, the waiter told me all sorts of things, making it seem like they were not worthy of living in this kind of room. I finally left. There's something wrong with this waiter, huh? Editha was furious after the waiter left. She found that over the past few days, she was becoming more and more like a real life form, and she also knew how to get angry. That's right, hum. The little fish stomped its scales to express that he was stomping his feet, and that he looked down on the waiter. Bah, bah, bah. Edisha looked at the bubbles spit out by the little fish. There were already some bubbles, and it seemed that the color had changed, heading towards black. Xiao, why are your bubbles this color? The little fish couldn't help but look at the bubbles he spit out, and was immediately dumbfounded. Why are my bubbles like this? They are so ugly. Woohoo, I don't want my bubbles to change color. Don't worry, this shouldn't be your problem. After you leave this giant tree city, the problem should be solved. Jia Yan comforted her with a smile. Brother, master, do you know something? Editha smiled, her big eyes showing wisdom that could see through everything. In fact, Adisha also felt something, but she didn't say it. Well, there must be someone here who hates me, but he is not targeting us now, and he must not be willing to break up with us. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant mosquito. Adisha thought for a while, her eyes suddenly lit up, but then she still didn't say anything. Master, Sister Adisha, what are you talking about? Why don't you tell Xiao? Xiao felt ostracized and was about to cry, and seemed to want to cry again. Sleep, I will take you to a fun place tomorrow. If someone cries again, I won't take her with me tomorrow. Following Jia Yan's threatening words, Xiao quickly flew to the bed, closed his eyes, and said that he was a good boy and did not cry. Jia Yan and Aidisha looked at each other and smiled. Whether it was an illusion or not, Jia Yan clearly felt that the power affecting his emotions around him seemed to be faintly strengthening. That night, the number of tourists jumping from the top of the extremely tall trees increased significantly. Early the next morning. Hey, you're not the waiter from yesterday. Where is the waiter from yesterday? Jia Yan noticed that the hotel waiter who came to serve him was no longer the domineering one yesterday. Sir, yesterday the waiter jumped from the tree for some unknown reason. I'm afraid he is hopeless. Jia Yan was speechless. No wonder the waiter's attitude was so arrogant. It turned out that he was also affected by the giant tree. However, even native creatures are like this, and foreign tourists are even more serious. Buzz. Xiao Yuer felt that a brainwave power appeared around her body, completely surrounding her. She was angry and had tears rolling in her eyes, but she sniffed silently and didn't want to cry anymore. She even felt that she was a fool these past 2 days, why she kept thinking about crying, and what if the master didn't want her anymore. Adisha, can you stop it yourself? Yeah, Adisha can. Jia Yan led the 2 little girls towards the outside world. Their purpose today has not changed, which is to visit the highest level. Since Xiao Yuer was protected by Jia Yan's brainwave power, he has never lost his mind at all. Although he is quite happy when playing, he is still measured. Wow, it's so high, it's really a good view. Aditha exclaimed. They have reached the top of the giant tree, which is more than 600 kilometers high. Not to mention the mountains at a glance, there are even a lot of clouds under their feet. The entire southern giant, stretching endlessly, and the endless land, was also exposed in front of them because of this height. The scary thing is that even at this height, the southern giant still doesn't seem to have the slightest arc, which shows that this planet is so big that if you want to see the arc, you have to go at least 10,000 kilometers away. But this does not mean that it is not fun to see the scenery from high altitude. On the contrary, it is more interesting to see the southern giant star from such a height. Distant trees, distant creatures and creature nests, as well as a large number of rivers, ruins, etc., are all visible. So fun. Xiao Yu dances happily. Of course, if Jia Yan wants her to stop, she can stop immediately. This is not happiness under the influence of emotions, but she is so happy in the first place. Just as they were standing on the top of the tree, looking down with several other tourists, a branch suddenly extended, and the height exceeded the sky at the top of the tree where they were, and it swept directly over. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant mosquito. The goal is to sweep them all off the trees. Hey, it's here as expected. A strange look appeared in Jia Yan's eyes. What's wrong with this branch? Why are the branches moving? Everyone, be careful, this branch has come to life and is going to sweep us down. There were several strong men around him, one of them was still at the galaxy level. When he saw the branch sweeping towards him, he made a defensive move with brainwave power. But there were no surprises. The speed and power of the branches swept down were beyond the ability of a Galaxy Junior to defend against. Snapped. This person was swept down crazily, and his body suddenly swept down several tourists behind him. Careful! Jia Yan exclaimed in surprise, picked up the 2 girls, and suddenly lifted into the air. Don't forget, other people can't fly. As a junior territory lord, how could he not be able to fly? Help, sir! Several people who fell looked at Jia Yan stretching out his arms or claws. However, Jia Yan didn't have any intention of rescuing. He watched the group of guys falling downwards and soon submerged into the leaves, and the sound became farther and farther away. He had no intention of trying to save people in this situation. Not because it can't be done, but because the risk is unnecessary. Among the people who had just fallen, Several of them had obviously made unnecessary movements and seemed to be personnel from Giant Tree City. Even Jia Yan may be in danger if he rashly rescues someone but is attacked secretly by the other party. Who? Among the tree branches, a large number of branches began to move quickly, grabbing suddenly in the direction of Jia Yan. Sir, you should know that this little trick is ineffective against me. Jia Yan smiled grimly and hugged the little girl with his two mid-feet. His forefeet turned into sharp blades and slashed down one by one, cutting all the branches that were stretched out. To deal with such tree-type creatures, Jia Yan's forefoot blade is quite easy to use. The whole tree was trembling, as if it had been hurt by Jia Yan's sharp feet. Of course, for its body, this damage is almost negligible. I was only slightly hurt, but also very angry. And because of this tremor, there was panic in all the towns in Giant Tree City, where some people were already panicking. You know, to the vast majority of residents, Giant Tree City is just a terrifying giant tree that cannot move and has no emotions. Only a few high-level people know that giant trees are living things and have self-awareness. If today's giant tree actually shows signs of moving on its own, it would be like a bolt from the blue to most people. After all, had they known it was a living thing, many people might not have trusted it and chosen to move to it. You die. Jia Yan was high up in the sky and saw blood-red eyes appearing on the huge tree stump between the branches. I see, you're angry. Jia Yanyun smiled calmly. I am just a strong man passing by. No matter what I think, I have never provoked you. Why are you so aggressive? This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. You die. Jia Yan observed carefully and cut a large number of branches at the same time. Finally, he suddenly realized what he was doing and laughed. I understand, you have received too many emotions, which caused you to be affected by these emotions. Gradually, you changed your thinking and began to become violent. As a result, it was fine at first. After meeting the same class, your sense of crisis triggered the negative emotions finally turned into the madness today, am I right? Die, die, die. The eyes of the giant tree suddenly became as scary as a lonely ghost. The branches stretched out even more crazily, and above the high-rise town, the giant branches supporting the city also began to move, as if they were about to mobilize. Those large tree branches that support the city attack Jia Yan. Only branches of that level can cause harm to a powerful person in the lower realm of the territory lord. Hey, don't do this. If you continue like this, you will cause your own people to be harmed. Jia Yan looked at the high-rise town and saw that houses were beginning to collapse and people were falling. However, the giant tree's eyes were still so fierce, and a large number of branches would attack Jia Yan from time to time. Jia Yan sighed, finally said nothing, and started fighting with the large number of branches coming. What's wrong? This giant tree is about to move. Is the giant tree city alive? What's the point of playing? Let's go. Danger. It's too dangerous. The giant tree has begun to wreak havoc. If you don't move away, you are destined to fall to death. Where's the plane? Where's our private plane? Hurry up and get the private plane over. There is also a private plane, and it has already fallen down at the airport. For a time, the panicked people felt huge panic, running and crying in every corner of the giant tree city. It's just that such a terrifying giant tree belongs to the category of giant trees under their feet. Apart from jumping off the giant tree, they have nowhere to go and can only run away like headless flies. The tourists and experts who were close to the central area soon discovered that it was relatively safe, spacious, and less prone to shaking, so a large number of people began to approach here. Die, die, die. At the top, Jia Yan felt that the giant tree seemed to be gradually waking up from its frozen state and vowing to fight to the death with him. My lord, please have mercy. Jia Yanyun smiled calmly. I am just a strong man passing by. No matter what I think, I have never provoked you. Why are you so aggressive? You die. Jia Yan observed carefully and cut a large number of branches at the same time. Finally, he suddenly realized what he was doing and laughed. I understand, you have received too many emotions, which caused you to be affected by these emotions. Gradually, you changed your thinking and started to become violent. As a result, it was okay in the past. I found a bookstore and met the same person. After the stage, the sense of crisis triggered your negative emotions, and finally turned into the madness you have today, am I right? Die, die, die. The eyes of the giant tree suddenly became as scary as a lonely ghost. The branches stretched out even more crazily, and above the high-rise town, the giant branches supporting the city also began to move, as if they were about to mobilize. Those large tree branches that support the city attack Jia Yan. This chapter is not finished, click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Only branches of that level can cause harm to a powerful person in the lower realm of the territory lord. Hey, don't do this. If you continue like this, you will cause your own people to be harmed. Jia Yan looked at the high-rise town and saw that houses were beginning to collapse and people were falling. However, the giant tree's eyes were still so fierce, and a large number of branches would attack Jia Yan from time to time. Jia Yan sighed, finally said nothing, and started fighting with the large number of branches coming. What's wrong? This giant tree is about to move. Is the giant tree city alive? What's the point of playing? Let's go. Danger. It's too dangerous. The giant tree has begun to wreak havoc. If you don't move away, you are destined to fall to death. Where's the plane? Where's our private plane? Hurry up and get the private plane over. There is also a private plane, and it has already fallen down at the airport. For a time, the panicked people felt huge panic, running and crying in every corner of the giant tree city. Just so scared. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3005. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Because some bad guys are causing trouble. In addition to helping the tree ancestors, the water in the sky is also an important treasure for nourishing the body. The news I just got is that there are bad guys tampering with the water in the sky, just to take advantage of the chaos of the tree ancestors. At that time, take away all the water in the sky, so that the tree ancestor will not be able to regain his sanity, and no one will seek revenge on him. Oh? The news you got, haha, do you want me to go up and solve the problem for you? Who knows, is this your way of killing someone with a borrowed knife? Jia Yan smiled jokingly. Even if it were true, it was impossible for him to be bewitched like this. Why should he fight to the death for others? He would rather confront the out-of-control giant tree here. After all, such a giant tree is actually easy to deal with. If Jia Yan really had to go all out, he might be able to kill this behemoth if he took some injuries, and the benefits he would gain would probably not be bad. Senior Master, I know you don't believe me, but you can believe in the treasure. The effect of the water in the sky is definitely beyond your imagination. Even a powerful person like you may get unimaginable benefits. Otherwise, how can it nourish and calm our tree ancestors? Jia Yan thought about it and realized it was true. If we only look at the physical body, Jia Yan admits that this giant tree is probably the most powerful existence he has seen so far. Otherwise, when he evaluated the combat power of both sides, why would he position it as slightly stronger than himself? It was because its body was so terrifying that Jia Yan thought it would be difficult to harm it without using explosives. If it was the effect of the water in the sky, it was really a small chance. Obviously I didn't come to Nanjing Star for my own opportunity. Jia Yan shook his head. How can I trust you? Show me the evidence. The strong domain lord was probably well prepared and took out a seemingly ordinary kettle. Sir, this bottle is exactly the water from the sky. I have been saving it for many years before I finally got such a kettle. You can try it and see the effect, and then compare the feeling of breath given to you by the sky. Is it the same? The other party threw the kettle over. He was almost knocked away by a huge branch, but Jia Yan caught it on his feet first. After opening the kettle, Jia Yan poured all the strange-smelling water in it onto his feet without saying a word. Well, he felt an unprecedented and shocking mood. Yes, it's not energy or anything special, but a simple artistic conception. When this kind of artistic conception enters the body, it is like automatically gathering the cells and tissues in the body, causing the cells and tissues to evolve automatically, and then arrange the genetic arrangement according to orders. It seems that a pot of water is a lot, and it is poured on the current Jia Yan's body, covering a large area of the feet. In reality, this was definitely not the case. Jia Yan's true body size was much larger than this small pot of water. He tried his best to concentrate the effect on one place, and finally got a rough idea. Snapped. While cutting off the branches stabbed by the giant tree, Jia Yan experienced this feeling. It's still pretty good. If there are enough, for me, I'm afraid it won't be a small gain. After reaching the lower level of Territory Lord, there are very, very few things in the entire galaxy that are actually effective for them. Even if there are, they are extremely dangerous in white dwarfs, the edges of black holes, deep in stars, space cracks, etc. Jia Yan, there are places where it is impossible to risk going. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. And now there is such a treasure here, which is really not to be missed. Finally, Jia Yan shook his head. He still acted for himself. Old Shu, I will leave for a while. When you regain your consciousness, I will communicate with you again. The person below saw Jia Yan, who seemed to be entangled in branches, easily broke through the endless entanglement of branches, and took the two little girls soaring into the sky. Sure enough, he is a powerful person from the lower level of the Domain Lord. The Domain Lord level expression was complicated. For the safety of Giant Tree City, he had no choice but to take risks, and now he had offended the powerful, late-level Domain Lord, but whether the other party could act according to his wishes still depended on his conscience. Thinking of this, he slapped away the large number of branches that were entangled with him, and shouted loudly, "Sir, I hope you can keep some of the water from the sky. You can't use so much of that water alone. Leave some for the tree ancestor to restore his sanity, and I, the entire Giant Tree City, are grateful." When things come to a close, if Jia Yan doesn't keep his promise, he can only blame his bad luck. Jia Yan just turned around and glanced, smiled slightly, and continued flying in the sky. Above 1,000 kilometers, it is not a very short distance. Whether an ordinary Domain Lord can fly that high in a short time is a matter of two opinions. But for the lower level of Domain Lord, it is not an unreachable distance. "Master, brother, will we hinder you?" Adisha was very sensible and asked cautiously. "No way, if you leave my side, I feel that you will be used by the enemy. Then let's follow you." That cloud in the sky. The white clouds hang high, seemingly flawless, but actually they hide dirt and evil. In fact, many forces and powerful people are focusing on this space where ordinary powerful people cannot get up and powerful beings look down on them. They organize their forces, hide their gray income, and even engage in very ungrateful activities. It's just that in this cloud area, it is absolutely difficult to find people. Because strong creatures or high-altitude forces that appear nearby will be attacked and left by the giant tree. A territory lord who is sitting on the ground, even if it is thousands of kilometers above the sky, will always be his territory, because the territory lord has this kind of strength. Here, Yudeo's figure is moving slowly. Behind him was another white cloud, but this white cloud was hollow. As the creature moved, his hands grasped it from time to time, and he picked up a large number of white clouds from the clouds where the soft water in the sky was. Thrown into the white clouds he brought. Quack, quack, I'm afraid the giant tree will be angry to death. It's a pity that even if I take the water from the sky away, he won't be able to regain his consciousness. He won't even be able to get angry even if he wants to. I didn't expect that the dignified lower level of the territory lord would eventually die in the hands of a senior territory lord like me. Things are unpredictable, ha ha ha. This strong man's aura is faintly visible, but the sense of energy revealed all over his body is that of a senior domain master, but he is a combat type existence among senior domain masters, and his strength has almost reached the critical point. He spared no effort to quickly grab the white clouds, and when he grabbed these white clouds, there was actually the sound of water emerging from them. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Sir, that's it? Take all these things away. What should I use? A man's voice suddenly appeared behind him, quietly, which startled the senior domain master who had gone all out to explore the surrounding area. Who? A passerby. The opponent's body, which looked like a long stick figure, twisted back and saw a flying insect-like creature behind him. Because of the limitations of the big star rules, he couldn't see the opponent's strength at all. Just judging from the appearance, he is at least a senior domain lord like him. Your Excellency, since you are a passerby, I advise you not to meddle in other people's business. The stick figure has a stern look and a pale heart. He looks like he is determined to kill, but in reality he is retreating. He is not a competitive person. Since the other party dared to stop him and arrived at a close distance without being discovered by him, it shows that he is by no means an ordinary person. Sorry, I don't want to be nosy, but there is a person below who said that if I take charge of it, all the water from the sky will be handed over to me. If you give it to me, I won't care about you. How is that possible? Your Excellency, can you change the conditions? The other party's expression became sinister again. He has been working for so long just for the water in the sky. Jia Yan said that he wanted to monopolize the water in the sky, which was not what he was willing to accept. No need to change conditions. Let me give you a piece of advice. Don't be confused for a moment and do something you will regret for the rest of your life. Jia Yan shook his head. Humph, you're so arrogant. This senior domain master is not without subordinates. He is not like Jia Yan, who only likes to travel the galaxy alone. Two senior domain masters emerged from the nearby clouds. Deal with him for me. The stick man refused to do it himself and continued to frantically pick the water from the sky in the clouds, letting his two subordinates attack the insect-like creature that blocked him. He believed that his two subordinates could handle everything well. After all, the lower level of territory lords were only a few among the superstars. He did not believe that one of them happened to be in the giant tree city. And as long as he is not a junior territory lord, his two senior territory lord subordinates can delay or even kill him. Puff. And just as he was thinking about this, he heard two senior subordinates of the territory lord, sparing no effort to hit Jia Yan hard. However, their power seemed to be blocked by invisible fog, and then 2 feet were shot, killing the two people. The head was chopped off in one go. What? Is this a defeat? One move. This strong man's whole body trembled violently, and his eyes were full of unimaginable sight. Kill 2 senior domain lords with one move. The scene of the 2 senior domain masters falling towards the earth did not look like an illusion, but the process was too dreamy for him to believe. Then, an answer flashed through his heart, making his body stiff. The lower level of the domain lord. Only the lower-level domain lords can kill 2 senior territory lords with one move. Rear rank of domain lord? Your Excellency, if you have something to say, please tell me. The senior domain master quickly flew up from the clouds, pulling the clouds that he had filled to 1/3 of their size, and retreated as he spoke. If you have anything to say, just come forward and say it. To hide it and say you want to speak, you are too ignorant of etiquette. Jia Yan was approaching in front of him, his words and deeds were very popular. This chapter is not finished, click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. No. Please don't get close to me. Although I am only a senior domain lord, I can still pose some threat to you if I step into the lower ranks of domain lords. Oh? I have never seen a senior domain lord who can pose a threat to the lower level existence of domain lords. Can you open my eyes? Jia Yan's smile was even more exaggerated. This person is a wonderful person, and the senior domain lord wants to be on par with the junior domain lords. If it were that simple, he wouldn't have been unable to fight against the lower level of the territory lord, and he wouldn't have been able to even compete with him. Only when you reach this level in person can you know how big the gap between the two sides is, so he doesn't believe that the stickman can cross the level to confront him. Your Excellency, don't be stubborn. Regardless of my own strength for the time being, I will only mention that the force I come from is also controlled by the lower level domain lords. If you destroy our good deeds, you will only be attacked by the powerful middle level and lower level powers of this force in the future. Kill. Speaking of this, Jia Yan wanted to have fun even more. Haha, what you said is quite scary, but you have forgotten one thing. I am also a lower level territory lord. No matter how strong he is, unless he is above the territory lord, it may not be that simple to kill me. There are also superiors and inferiors in the lower level of territory lord, but it is too difficult for strong men of the same level to kill existences of similar strength. Each lower level of territory lord probably has very powerful means of self-protection, so Jia Yan would not expect to kill a lower level territory lord soon in the near future, and of course he would not think that he would be easily killed by other lower level territory lords. Okay, it seems you don't have any backup plan, so let's end this farce. Jia Yan approached this powerful man at the top of the senior domain lord with overwhelming momentum. Roll. This strong man did have some skills. When Jia Yan rushed closer, he released his own blocking force. This strength is very strange, and there is a sense of finding a new way. The effect is also very strange, that is, it creates a perfect friction between its own existence and the starry sky at nearly the same time. This friction is not some magical power, nor is it some brainwave power technique, but the result of actual research. The power will be infinitely weakened. Jia Yan's attack reached the world of this being and turned the whole world upside down. Therefore, Jia Yan's attack slided past the opponent's body in an instant. Oh! I have some knowledge. Simple things. There are also superiors and inferiors in the lower level of territory lord, but it is too difficult for strong men of the same level to kill existences of similar strength. Each lower level of territory lord probably has very powerful means of self-protection, so Jia Yan would not expect to kill a lower level territory lord soon in the near future, and of course he would not think that he would be easily killed by other lower level territory lords. Okay, it seems you don't have any backup plan, so let's end this farce. Jia Yan approached this powerful man at the top of the senior domain lord with overwhelming momentum. Roll. This strong man did have some skills. When Jia Yan rushed closer, he released his own blocking force. This strength is very strange, and there is a sense of finding a new way. The effect is also very strange, that is, it creates a perfect friction between its own existence and the starry sky at nearly the same time. This chapter is not finished, Click next page to continue reading U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant mosquito. This friction is not some magical power, nor is it some brainwave power technique, but the result of actual research. The power will be infinitely weakened. Jia Yan's attack hit this being's world and turned it upside down. Therefore, Jia Yan's attack slided past the opponent's body in an instant. Oh! I have some knowledge the world of this existence was completely turned upside down. Therefore, Jia Yan's attack slided past the opponent's body in an instant. Oh! I have some knowledge. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3006. Rebirth of the starry sky giant mosquito. Haha, my friend, if you really think that your fighting skills are useful to me, then you are looking down on the existence of the lower level domain lords. Jia Yan spoke out and admitted the fact that he was a lower ranking territory lord. Tactically, this was a means of putting pressure on his opponents. But Fang's expression was slightly frozen. Although he has been suppressed, deep down in his heart, he still has some delusions, such as thinking that Jia Yan is not a lower-level territory lord, so at least he still has a chance. However, Jia Yan's words directly shattered his wishful thinking. As for the late territory lord, as a senior territory lord, this person knows very well that even if his strength is close to the territory lord, compared with the real territory lord, it is difficult to have a chance to defeat him. The closer you get to the territory lord's backstage, the more you understand that there is such a thing as the territory lord's backstage, and there is a ravine between heaven and earth just one step away. Your Excellency, I know you are ridiculing me, but you must think clearly. The power that dares to calculate the existence of a lower-level territory lord is destined to be extraordinary. Even I only know one of the lower-level territory lords among our forces. But you must consider carefully whether you are going against the lower level of the territory lord of our power. Jia Yan's attack landed on the body of the senior domain master. This creature still had some level of skill. When Jia Yan's azure defensive feat stabbed his body, he was seriously injured and his body flew backwards. You can break free of this. It's really not that easy to deal with. Jia Yan's pupils shrank. He knew that the senior domain lord was actually only one level away from the lower level domain lord. In fact, if the senior domain lord was strong enough, it would not be an impossible miracle to avoid the attack of a lower level domain lord. Even for him, in the era of senior domain lords, it is probably not a big deal to dodge the attack of a lower level domain lord creature. However, having said that, the real scene was that the other party was severely injured. It's true that he was able to escape, and Jia Yan also admired him, but that was just because Jia Yan didn't use all his strength, and the opponent was a top-notch senior domain lord. Not only is it a top-level combat-type senior domain lord, but also a senior domain lord who possesses superstar creatures to be able to possess that kind of means. These conditions are indispensable, otherwise, do you want to escape with your life from a casual attack by the lower-level domain lord? Totally wishful thinking. Ahem, senior, what I said is true. The other party coughed out blood while running away, and he was indeed seriously injured. Real or false, what does it have to do with me? If you think there is a lower-ranking territory lord in the force, call the lower-ranked territory lord behind you now. Jia Yan's face remained as usual, and his feet were flushed with a deep blue color. Maybe with the next blow, he would be able to move 3 or 4 points of his real strength. A senior territory lord, even a half step behind territory lord, would probably die from this blow. Since my friends want to see me, why are they embarrassed not to meet me? At the same time that Jia Yan struck out, there was a loud noise like 5 thunders in the sky. At the same time, a force of heavenly power suddenly bloomed in the sky, and suddenly met Jia Yan and attacked the fleeing being. The power of Snort. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Jia Yan was slightly shocked at first, then his face became sinister and he increased the strength of his attack. Puff. Although more than half of Jia Yan's offensive was wiped out by the power coming from the sky, the rest still hit the fleeing being behind, causing it to spurt out blood again, and the whole person's breath became dying. After Jia Yan finished all this, he turned his head to the sky without changing his expression, silently looking at the place where power was released. It turns out that your real body has not come here. You think that with a clone-like existence, you can make the rat-throwing weapon of the same level useless. You are a bit too conceited. Jia Yan said sarcastically. The voice in the sky was silent for a moment, and then sighed, "Friend, although this subordinate of mine is indeed a bit excessive, what he said is true. Do you want to have a confrontation with our forces? Although we and other forces are not counting the first-class forces of Southern Superstar, but they still have some energy, have you considered it thoughtfully?" This statement may seem approachable, but it is full of aggressive gestures. Although Jia Yan had given in at times in his life, he almost never gave in because of the enemy's words. He was calm and said, "I hope you will not use words to scare me. This method is by no means effective for a lower-ranking territory lord who knows his own mind. On the contrary, it will make you lose your temper for no reason. The level has dropped a lot." The superiors were once again provoked into silence by Jia Yan's outspokenness. Perhaps above the Southern Superstar, verbal exchanges between territory lords are quite rare, or in other words, for people of this level, they have already passed that stage. Jia Yan, on the other hand, has just been promoted from the senior domain master, and he is still a creature who has been practicing for such a short time, so his speech and behavior are still unique. The other party really couldn't argue with him. "My friend, I still say this. I hope you can be merciful. I and the force I belong to will be grateful." Jia Yan didn't even expect that the other party could beg him to show mercy. You know, the other party was also a lower-level territory lord. But looking back at the senior domain master who was struck by Jia Yan and whose breath was sluggish, Jia Yan also suddenly realized. This kind of existence that is about to break through to the lower level of territory lord, even if placed in any force, is definitely an extremely important figure. If it can be protected, it will definitely be of huge benefit to the other party's force. It was only natural that he would provoke a lower-level domain lord to take action personally. Is this a delaying strategy? Are you planning to come in person? Jia Yan felt it and felt an upright aura flying in from an unknown place, and he immediately understood the other party's plan. He looked at the peak of the senior territory lord who was already weak, and wrote lightly, "I didn't expect that your power is still so talented. It's a pity that I am not a native of Southern Superstar, otherwise I would have risen to join you." The idea of power. The looming voice above seemed surprised, and then said with some enthusiasm, "Friend, if you really think so, it would be best. Our power is by no means just a corner of the Southern Superstar. Even above other superstars, our power exists, and if you have your heart set on something, why don't we sit down and have a good talk, and let's pretend that the previous misunderstanding never happened." This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Poof, click. Just when this lower-level domain lord voiced the above requirements and ideas with some enthusiasm, a sudden change occurred. Jia Yan pierced the head of the seriously injured senior domain lord with one of his feet, nailing him in the air. His expression was extremely painful for an instant, and struggling words "ho ho ho" came out of his mouth, but there was no possibility of breaking free. This In the sky above his head, the clone suddenly became furious. Above the high stars, it seemed that even the sky was covered in color, and it was so dark that there was endless pressure to crush it down. Does the clone dare to be so presumptuous? Just when Edisha and Xiaoyu were both in silence, almost vomiting blood from being suppressed by this mighty pressure, Jia Yan's momentum was like a radiant light, pushing the sweeping power out of the sky. Rumble. A senior territory lord's peak being was killed, and another territory lord's lower-level avatar was crushed. The stubborn resistance of these two beings caused a storm in the sky and endless pressure on the earth and mid-air. Stir. It's simply unreasonable, it's simply unreasonable. The clone that was knocked upside down roared again and again, as if it had encountered something unreasonable. It was not only furious, but also full of anger, as if Jia Yan had some kind of blood feud with him and wanted to choose someone to devour. Hee, you don't have to be angry. For a guy who dares to be rude to the lower level of the territory lord, there is nothing wrong with me punishing him with a small amount of punishment. Isn't that the way we do it in this southern superstar? Asshole. Asshole. Do you know his identity? If you don't understand, you dare to kill people. Very good, very good. This force will fight you to death. Since you dare to kill people, you must bear the corresponding consequences, my friend. Just wait. Jia Yan only felt that the power of the clone was like a whirlwind, and it quickly disappeared between heaven and earth. It was so fast that even he who was about to kill the clone was a little too late. The last brainwave power bombarded him as he left. That piece of sky caused the other party to seem to have been slightly injured, but he still ran away. Oh! Even the incoming energy has disappeared. Is he pretending to be a ghost, or is his true form not actually nearby? Jia Yan pondered for a moment, then shook his head, forgetting what had just been revealed in this scene. He knew that he had caused some trouble, but to him, this kind of trouble was not something serious. A gathering of forces from the lower-level beings of the territory lords. Thinking too much. Jia Yan knew that if the lower ranks of territory lords were all similar creatures like him, it would be difficult to work together. In other words, it would be difficult for the forces gathered by the lower ranks of territory lords to establish. Even if it is established, there will be at most a verbal promise between them. It would be extremely difficult for them to work together to fight against the enemy. At least as far as Jia Yan himself is concerned, if he had to join some forces established by the lower-level territory lords and ask him to work hard for other lower-level territory lords, he would not be able to go all out. In other words, he could take the threat from the domain lord's clone just now, or he could not take it seriously. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Even if something goes wrong, there is something wrong with my analysis. The other party has two, or even two or more domain lords coming to deal with me. Don't forget, I am still a subspace talent. I can't beat him. If I run away, I can always escape. Yes, Jia Yan is confident and full of confidence. Just 100 billion kilometers away from here. There was a sound of gnashing of teeth, almost breaking teeth. Damn it, he actually killed. He really took action. How dare he? Why did he dare? The fierce and inward voice stirred in this space, and with its roar, a large number of creatures around felt the mighty power of the god. Large areas of land were shaken by the power, and the earth was turned upside down, with sand and rocks flying. However, even so, this powerful man who seemed to be sworn in with Jia Yan did not really leave. Not to mention the distance of hundreds of billions of kilometers. By the time he arrived at Giant Tree City, Jia Yan and his group would have been far away. Just saying that he really arrived, can he really tolerate the other party? They are all junior domain lords, so it's not certain who will kill whom. Since the other party dares to take action against his subordinates when they know that he is a lower-level territory lord, it shows that the other party is confident. In other words, even if the other party knows that he has provoked a lower-level territory lord, he still dares to take action, which means that the other party he has the ability not to look down upon a lower-level domain lord. A strong person among the lower ranks of territory lords. Or, he has unique methods. After a moment of incompetent rage, the domain lord fell silent. All the roars, anger, and even sadness were just appearances. For such beings, their hearts are always cold and rational. Even Jia Yan is the same. They will always have a shot in their hearts, calculating the gains, losses, and impacts. If there is something dangerous for them, even if their own son is shot, even if they kill, they will definitely be able to do it with impunity. However, it is impossible to kill a member of my force who will be a good person in the future. He wants to pretend that it has never happened. I will contact other powerful people. This being restrained his anger, silently took out the ultra-long-distance communication means, and silently connected. This water from the sky is really a good thing. At the same time, looking for the book garden just above the giant tree city, Jia Yan had forgotten the strange things just now, and happily collected the water in the sky. A large amount of fog was collected by him. And part of the cloud mist was stirred up by his energy and turned directly into water vapor. Jia Yan tried to take a sip, and he felt refreshed and his internal organs were greatly benefited. But these clouds should not be used on the internal organs, but on the surface of the body. After Jia Yan tried for a while, he calmly put away a large amount of clouds and mist, and finally separated out about 1/20th, no, after hesitating, he only took out 1/30th and collected it into the sky. Above the inside of a bottle. This bottle is about 10 stories high. For the current Jia Yan, it is an extremely huge bottle. But for the real him, it is simply a drop in the bucket, and for the lower level of the domain lord, it is so the giant bottle is definitely not massive. There are thousands of similar bottles in the sky. Jia Yan can judge from the energy fluctuations on them and the placement of the bottles. On weekdays, these bottles will automatically harvest water from the sky, and then under the operation of employees down, overturned on the giant tree below. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant Mosquito. However, it was absolutely impossible for Jia Yan to help him harvest so much water from the sky, so leaving him a bottle was considered a great honor. While Jia Yan was sucking the water from the sky, and still feeling unfinished, he poured the collected water from the sky down from the sky. The water from the sky turned into a downpour. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3007. Rebirth of the starry sky giant mosquito. Wow! Beneath the earth, the dancing, out-of-control giant tree seemed to be feeling vaguely. Before the water from the sky hit the ground, it had already extended a large number of branches and leaves, covering a large amount of the sky as if it were blocking the sun. Countless amounts of water from the sky were caught by it, and it seemed that not even a drop of water was leaking, and not even a drizzle was willing to flow into the town below. Diddy, diddy, diddy. The water droplets were like stars in the sky, falling crystal clear on the body of the giant tree, and were quickly absorbed, digested, and transformed into their own power. Those circuits that had lost their senses were quickly calmed down. It's just that this reason, although it subsides quickly, it also disappears quickly. Because the rain stopped soon. After all, there is only one bottle. Swish swish swish. The silent drizzle that moistened things finally stopped pouring for less than 2 minutes, and the joyful mood of the swaying giant trees below also came to an abrupt end. Josui may have faced such a situation more than once, but never before had the heavy rain stopped in a short period of time. It was like a resentful woman who was teased halfway and then stopped immediately, her expression quickly becoming furious. Joshu, I know you have regained your consciousness. If you want to take advantage of this opportunity to cause trouble, I don't mind killing you while you have little strength. A voice that made his whole body tremble came down from the sky, completely extinguishing the anger that had just risen in him. He calmed down. Although the amount of water from the sky was small, it was enough to restore his sanity. "You, who are you?" The old and steady voice, like an old cow, sounded faintly from below the earth. When you hear this voice, you can feel that it is ancient and has endless thoughts. It cannot be associated with the existence that just lost its mind. Together. I am just an ordinary tourist. Senior giant tree, your giant tree body has opened my eyes. However, this method of cultivation is not so upright. The giant tree was silent for a moment, and just when Jia Yan thought it was still angry, it let out a subtle sigh. I can feel that your fire of life is so strong, so you don't understand. You don't understand how we feel trapped in the same level after endless lives, unable to make any progress. You also don't understand how we have lived so long. For a long time, I have lost all feelings towards any situation in the world, so I don't blame you. Jia Yan smiled rebelliously. Oh? Can I regard you as educating your peers? If you live long enough, you can speak nonsense and say that I don't understand. That means you are being reasonable. If you say that you have not made any progress, that means you can look down on me? Haha, what a great truth, it really makes me laugh. He didn't wait for the giant tree to say anything in silence, and continued to say with a normal expression, "Put away your words, although I am not very old, I still have my own insistence on the lower level of domain lord, otherwise I would not be able to cultivate to this level. You just need to tell me what benefits I can get and what you can pay me." This chapter is not finished, click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. The giant tree was completely silent for an instant, with no branches or trunks swaying, as if the previous noise of gongs and drums did not exist. In the giant tree city below, a large number of people are still fleeing. However, some of the city's senior officials have learned the news and are comforting their subordinates and announcing the end of the crisis. Strong man, although you are young, you are extremely thoughtful. I admire you. However, although I control the city, I don't actually own much. You can see from my current state that I have been with you for a long time. If you haven't moved it, you won't have any treasures. Why don't you just take away the water from the sky above, and I will never hold you responsible. Jia Yan laughed disdainfully upon hearing this. You giant tree, I got this water from the sky by defeating my opponent. But by saying this, I owe you a favor. How can it be unreasonable? How can you be a free-handed wolf like you? Then what do you want to do? You have been soaking in this water from the sky for many years. You must know how to use this water. Tell me carefully, and then, you must have more than just this little water from the sky. Since I have helped you so much, I hope you can still express something. You. Jusha felt extremely humiliated and could hardly bear the urge to take action. However, he was relatively restrained, and seemed to be a different person from the violent existence before. Jia Yan believed that this giant tree could not easily tolerate being affected by mental disorders at every turn, so he definitely had his own backup plan, such as hiding an astonishing amount of sky water, to ensure that he would not really face the consequences of losing control. A living dead ending. After all, he has lived for an unknown amount of time. If he didn't have this little bit of scheming, he might not be alive today. This brave man, I can teach you the specific use of the water in the sky. However, the water in the sky is really gone. Don't force it on others. I am afraid that this giant tree has not talked to others in such a low voice for a long time. When he said these words today, he felt quite unfluent. Jia Yan, however, has long been accustomed to people who are arrogant at first and respectful at the back. In his existence, he will always encounter such guys who look down on him and are eventually impressed by him. I'm sorry, I don't recognize words like forcing others to make things difficult. I'm sure you have it, so your excellency must have it. I hope you won't make it difficult for me. Jia Yan's domineering words blocked the other person's mouth. And even the various excuses he made seemed to be difficult to proceed with. Do you think there must be something? With words like this, how can one find excuses? Well, if you say I have it, I will. Haha, you are really a wonderful person. That's all. I do have some of the water in the sky. However, if you want to devour it for yourself, even if I start a life and death fight with you right away, I will not. It is impossible to hand over all of it to your excellency. If you are willing to accept it, then I will give you a third. Is it 1/3? It's too little, at least half. If I leave half to you, it must be enough for you to use for a long time. Jia Yanlian opened his mouth wide. Okay, I'll give this to you. I hope you leave immediately. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. The giant tree actually stopped pretending, and a thick branch floated from the root of the tree. The branch cut itself off when it was suspended in the air. Moreover, it did not even make a muffled sound, which shows that it is also a ruthless character. In the roots of my tree, there is a vast amount of water from the sky. This water from the sky was originally used to protect my life when I was unconscious. Now I give it to you. If you take it by force again, I will not take it anymore. Forbearance. Jia Yan could feel that this giant tree being was a little angry after he threatened and lured him. Of course, it was more likely that he was threatening Jia Yan to leave. Jia Yan would never believe that the other party really handed over half of the water in the sky to him. He was more inclined to believe that the other party's intertwined tree roots occupying endless soil under the earth had far more than the water from the sky at the root of this tree. But he won't force it anymore. It really provoked the other party to go all out to fight with him. Even though Jia Yan knew that the other party had just experienced a catastrophic mental disorder, no one knew what methods such an old immortal could use. Since the other party was willing to settle the matter, he also got it. The good thing is that you don't have to be aggressive anymore, otherwise you might end up in disgrace. Thanks then. Jia Yan used the power of brain waves to catch the tree roots that were shot by electricity, and felt that there was a shocking and terrifying power inside. It was purer than the Tianshui water he had mastered, but the quantity was not comparable. This water from the sky should be a good thing. It makes people feel relaxed and happy when they smell it, and it has the feeling that thousands of pores are blooming. I have handed over the water from the sky to you, the strong man. This can be regarded as repaying your kindness. I wonder when you will leave. The giant tree roared softly and endured the humiliation. Haha, there is no need to be so excited. Senior Jushu, I know there is no benefit in irritating you. Since both parties have benefited, let's leave. Jia Yan smiled and saluted the giant tree. After all, he had to follow all the etiquette and at least he would not make the other party feel too angry. After all, he was a local snake. If he really wanted to pull some tricks, he had two little ones with him. The possibility of Jia Yan suffering a hidden loss is not small. Before leaving, Jia Yan still showed his hand. He dived into the subspace, causing the giant branches and leaves to sway violently, and his emotions were obviously shaken a lot. This beast is actually a talent from the subspace, that's all. It's better to dissolve enemies than to make enemies. How many years have we not seen each other since the second step of the subspace domain lord? 1 million years? Or 10 million years? Well, in short, this is it. Talented people are truly extraordinary and extremely difficult to offend, so don't care about them. Amidst the buzzing sound of the giant tree, it gradually entered a state of silence. Throughout Giant Tree City, a large number of tourists and people heard the previous conversation between the two parties. Some of the waiters who had received the giant mosquito tourist, locals, and tourists who had communicated with the three giant mosquitoes waiting, I was both excited and a little scared. If the giant tree holds them responsible, I am afraid that countless people will be punished accordingly, and they may even die. Leading two little kids to shuttle through the subspace, Jia Yan tried his best to use his brainwave power to protect the two children and protect them from the distortion and excitement of the subspace. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Wow, Master Brother is so awesome. Yes, Master is really awesome. Ba ba. The emotions of the two little kids have completely returned to their original state, but they are still full of enthusiasm. Just now, Jia Yan, in front of everyone's attention, killed the evildoers who came to attack the giant tree city to cause destruction, and with one hand, he had lived for who knows how many years. The giant tree was so threatening that it was unbelievable. Don't praise me. In fact, it's me who's eye-opening today. As expected, seeing this southern superstar is better than seeing it. I came here to see such a giant tree, not to mention the domain lord's back steps. The power is really eye-opening. Jia Yan was not too proud of his previous experience, and even felt a lot of solemnity. Not to mention the alliance forces with the lower level of domain lords, but only the giant tree. It seemed that the entire process was either attacked by the enemy to steal the items, or was suppressed by Jia Yan throughout the process. However, Jia Yan also knew that he was facing a giant tree with full firepower. Trees have little chance of winning, but many chances of losing. The situation just now was just that the other party had lived for too long and did not want to be acquainted with such a young and powerful man. If I play it right, I'm afraid I will enter the subspace and escape in a few moves. Whether Edisha and others can protect me is a matter of two opinions. Of course, since the other party has lived for so many years old, what I'm afraid of is that when my strength improves in the future, I will find trouble with him again, and be targeted by a subdimensional talent. Even if my overall strength is stronger, I will be exhausted and miserable. It's still the same argument. The existence of subspace talents is a character that many strong people don't want to provoke because it is too difficult to provoke. I don't need to belittle myself. For me, these two aspects are not absolutely invincible. It's just that if I offend them today, I have to pay more attention to my future behavior. Jia Yan didn't want to cause trouble, nor did he want to have a military encounter with the local territory lord's rear-rank soldiers. But this does not mean that he is afraid of things. Just like the experience just now, he did not have any fear, and even faced difficulties, threatening both sides. This is his code of conduct and his way of life. If you don't take advantage of it, you will be struck by lightning from the sky. Let's do this. I'll find a place to use the water in the sky temporarily. The progress of searching for genetic drugs will be postponed for a few days. I'll anyway. It's not enough time. Jia Yan was still itching to know how effective the water from the sky was on him. Just now, he has obtained the most effective use plan of sky water from the giant tree, and it has no conflict with his evolved beast body. It can be said that they complement each other. Puff. A moment later, the resolute Jia Yan emerged from the subspace, leading the two little kids, and appeared in a green ocean. Gah! Immediately, powerful creatures stirred up wind and dust around them and rushed towards the three figures. However, at the same moment when they charged, Jia Yan and his party, who had just emerged from the subspace, began to rise with magnificent energy, directly killing the group of powerful creatures flying towards them. Wow, I killed all the stars in one go. Brother Master, that's so awesome. Master is so awesome, Baba Baba. The flattery of two little sycophants has become a bit cliché, but it still makes Jia Yan very happy. This chapter is not finished, click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. The three of them wandered in the mountain forest for a while, and found that the powerful creatures around them had been wiped out by Jia Yan's wave just now. There would not be powerful life forms up to the star level until at least hundreds of kilometers away. In this way, they will not be afraid of being disturbed. Adisha, come and protect me. Xiao, you will stand guard. The next safety depends on you too. Come on. Yeah, Adisha must work hard to protect the law. So is Xiao Yuer. Their voices of agreement were loud and clear. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3008. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. The enthusiasm of the two little kids was mobilized by Jia Yan. They grinned fiercely, like a cute dragon roaring. One flew above the tree crown, and the other took out the magic weapon given by Jia Yan. Flying around in the sky, seemingly on patrol. Jia Yan smiled and fell into seclusion inside the cave of the giant tree, leaving a trace of his mind to observe the outside world. Of course, he would not really leave his safety to two brats to take care of him. In fact, he is the one who pays most attention to the outside world. It doesn't matter if the guys below the stellar level let the other party attack them. Stellar being above the level, he has used brainwave power to monitor. Presumably it is impossible for that kind of existence to come close for the time being. Buzz. First, he took out cloud-shaped water from the sky from inside the subspace. After analyzing it, Jia Yan discovered a lot of mysteries. The water of the sky, said to be water, is actually water molecules that exist in various substances. For example, the water of the sky in the clouds exists in the clouds, and due to the relationship of gravity, it gathers under a certain weight. Below, falling toward the ground, forming a unique rain curtain of water from the sky. Jia Yan analyzed the composition of the clouds and looked at the roots of the trees. The tree roots are extremely full of water and look quite delicious, and they are really big. Compared to Jia Yan's current 5-meter body, these roots are dozens of meters long and almost even fit into the tree hole. No less. The sky water inside is definitely more amazing than that in the clouds. The density is more than 10 times that of the clouds, and the power contained is several times greater. It can be seen that the giant tree is definitely bleeding profusely. Jia Yan wisely used the sky water in the clouds first. The method of using this water in the sky is also very simple. It uses the power of brain waves to force the water molecules out of the clouds. Then the clouds seem to have lost some important components and dissipate directly into the sky. Diddy diddy. The sky water overflowing from the clouds gathered in the air and fell drop by drop. Before it fell to the ground, Jia Yan used the power of his brain waves to collect them all, and finally gathered a star of about 10 in mid-air. Meter diameter transparent water balloon. It seems huge, but for Jia Yan's actual 50-kilometer long body, it is like a drop in the bucket and extremely inconspicuous. He doesn't even have much expectations for improvement, but is thinking about converting this 10-meter long body. The transparent sky water ball was used as a test subject, but in the end, what really wanted to benefit was the added version of sky water in the tree roots. What the giant tree told me was to pour the water from the sky on several key points. The efficiency of absorption will be greatly improved. But I vaguely feel that it shouldn't be like that. After all, I am an evolved beast. Instead of using my orifices to devour it, I might as well just use my mouthparts to devour it. Maybe there will be a miraculous effect. Of course, it is very useful to try some parts separately. Necessary. Jia Yan first put 2 drops on the joints of his feet. Suddenly he felt the endless pores on his feet opening, and a refreshing feeling poured into the joints of his feet, making his joints feel extremely tense. Unprecedented improvement. Then without any hesitation, he used his mouthpart to penetrate into the water ball and took a deep breath. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant mosquito. Gurgling. Well. In an instant, Jia Yan felt something magnificent explode in his mouth and all the way to the digestive organs in his abdomen. Trap? No, maybe the way I used it was wrong, and it actually caused such a terrifying and horrific explosion. If I hadn't been a lower-ranking territory lord, my stomach would have exploded. Jia Yan was in shock, but when he carefully looked at his injuries, he became even more surprised. It turned out that the energy of the explosion did not cause him any injuries in the first place, but later turned into the energy of the water in the sky and began to nourish his internal organs. So it turns out, this is not a failure, but because my evolved beast swallowing method is so efficient that I mistakenly thought it was an explosion just for a moment. No, if my strength is not at the lower level of the domain lord, or I can change it to another a creature came here, I'm afraid it was really destroyed. It can only be said to be a coincidence. Jia Yan figured out how to use sky water. Unexpectedly, he used the most basic skills of swallowing to turn the water from the sky to his own benefit extremely efficiently. At this point, Jia Yan believed that even the giant tree might not be able to compare with him. In particular, the other party has been devouring the water from the sky for who knows how many years. If he devours it now, how can the effect be as good as when he first comes into contact with the water from the sky? Gurgling, gurgling. After finding the authentic method of use, Jia Yan no longer considered anything else and just started drinking and eating. His body instantly entered a very deep state of cultivation in this area. Although he came here specifically for his family and friends, it did not prevent him from finding opportunities to improve himself. This water from the sky seems to be of great benefit to the body, but after eating too much, I realize that it is actually something that can enhance the spirit. No wonder, it can even help solve the mental problems of giant trees. It is strange to say that it has no mental assistance effect. But what even Jia Yan didn't expect was that the treasure accompanied by the giant tree would be more suitable for him. If he told about it, the giant tree would probably burst into tears. It just so happens that my current weakness is due to my lack of mental strength. There are still a lot of physical enhancement substances left. If I can make great progress mentally, it will be a matter of course for my strength to be further improved. Jia Yan was elated for a moment. He has seen many strong winds and waves, but now, I am afraid that only important things such as improving his strength will make his mood fluctuate greatly. The strength that was previously considered difficult to improve in a short period of time can be improved here by chance. This kind of unexpected joy naturally belongs to the category that makes Jia Yan feel good. Are there bad guys over there? The next day, Edisha, who was holding onto the ground, discovered a strong man approaching this area, and her expression immediately became solemn. Don't think that she can't play to her strengths at Southern Superstar. A capable being will have a place to shine wherever he goes. After using her unique computing power, Edisha assisted her power and created several good traps. On the ground, a figure came in panic. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant mosquito. The pursuers behind them shouldn't be chasing them anymore. Damn it, I didn't really want to harm them. I just accidentally attracted a group of monsters. Their great elder failed to break through and relied on me. It's simply unreasonable. This is a strong creature, but his eyes are wandering, and he doesn't look as big and honest as he looks. Hey! Who are you? A sharp, childish cry made the stellar powerhouse suddenly shrink his head. It wasn't until he looked for the voice that he realized that the owner of the voice was just a young kid, probably in his teens or 20s. You little brat is looking for death, are you scaring adults? You are the little devil, and Edisha is an adult. Edisha smiled and retorted to the creature. Edisha thought for a while before blurting out, "Are you a furbolg? You seem to be as big as a bear." "Who is Big Bear?" "I am the famous powerful bear in the nearby forest. If you don't want to be slapped by me, don't bother me." The black giant bear continued to move forward, and the little kid behind him, who was about half a star level, followed closely, as if there was no fear at all. The giant bear creature's expression fell and it walked in another direction. Not surprisingly, Edisha followed closely behind. The giant bear wanted to say something, but in the end he didn't say it. He just changed direction again in another direction, but Edisha behind him followed him again. This was repeated several times, and Edisha never tired of it. The other party finally looked a little ugly. "Gulao, here, what are you doing?" "I want to protect the law for my master." "When will you leave here?" "Are you protecting your master?" The other party's expression changed, and even a hint of greed emerged. However, after shaking his head, the greed disappeared into the depths of his eyes. "What is your master's strength?" "I won't tell you, but he is much, much better than you anyway." "Hee, I believe what others say, but I don't believe a hair of what you little brat says." "Edisha has no hair, you are the one who has hair." "Of course, everyone has fur on their body, and you must have fur on your body, but you are too small to see." Wow, you are a very bad person. You must want to torture teenagers." "How bad?" "I didn't say anything bad." "What's wrong?" "Yes, you drive." "Okay, I have it. Anyway, we'll never see you again, so I'm leaving." This bear-like creature stood up directly, trying to get around this little kid who seemed to have some mental problems. "You can't leave, or I will activate the trap." "Is there a trap here?" The other party was obviously stunned for a moment. "Yeah, it's a trap made by Editha herself." "Oh, you did it?" Big Bear smiled calmly. If the trap was made by its so-called master, it might make him have some scruples, but if Edisha said that she made it herself, then it would be classified as a kid playing games. Playhouse stuff. "Humph, I knew you would be like this, Xiao Yuer, you see clearly, Editha's secret trap, activate it." This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Editha looked at the leaving figure and started yelling. The delicate little fish above, with its pink fins fluttering, looked curiously at what was going on under the canopy. Sister Editha got into a fight with someone. An inexplicable tremor surged deep in Xiao Yuer's heart. This is probably the passion that only belongs to geniuses and battle addicts. Xiao Yuer is still young, but she still has a little desire to fight. However, in the past, she was not strong enough to participate in Jia Yan's battles. "Come on, little fish." Little fish fell from the sky. At this moment, there was a large ripple under the earth. "Oh! It's worthy of praise that a young half-star can actually create such a trap, but..." The strong man's face changed suddenly, but he didn't show the slightest surprise, he just became a little more solemn. "In the Southern Star, those who have some strength will have considerable combat experience, and such a small movement will not scare them." The giant bear clapped his hands and saw a large amount of soil lifted up from the ground, which was slapped away by the opponent. And he collapsed in one step and rushed straight towards Edissa, as if he was ready to teach this ignorant yellow-haired girl a lesson. "Hey, if you want to get close to Edisha, let's see what the moves are." Editha pointed to the sky and the earth again, and a shadow flew from the tree branches. The big bear didn't even look at it, and just slapped his bare paws as usual, trying to smash the flying object to pieces. However, when he saw little Edisha smiling excitedly, he felt frightened for a moment. "What's this? Buzz. The flying power came with positive and negative effects, and at the same time as the bear's claws came into contact, it burst out with a loud sound like thunder and thunder. This giant bear actually felt an irresistible force and was lifted up by the force. Bear's paw also suffered some minor injuries. Although it was not to the extent of making him disabled, it definitely caused a significant pain. Roar. This time the big bear was angry. In addition to being surprised, he was also angry. After all, anyone who was attacked and injured by such a little brat would feel ashamed. The same was true for the giant bear. He only admitted that he was careless. If he was prepared, Editha's moves would not be able to attack him. It turns out that this little kid's trap is really quite good. Haha, I screamed, but, do you think the great goddess of wisdom, Edisha, can only use this trick too? Editha giggled and raised her short chubby fingers again. The giant bear was already instinctively in awe of Edisha's fingers directing the trap. When Edisha made another weird move, he suddenly became silent and all the pores on his body stood up. Bear. Between heaven and earth, a large amount of soil was stirred up again. Ha ha ha, I was slapped away by you just now. If you have the ability, try again this time. The giant bear originally wanted to follow the example last time, but after hearing Edisha's words, he immediately hesitated. He thought that this time, there might be a trap waiting for him to attack in the soil. Immediately, the force of the slap started to retreat. The giant bear did not make direct contact, but retreated violently away from the area where the soil was flying. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Haha, I knew you had to avoid it. Look behind you. Edisha's words frightened the other party. She subconsciously looked back, and suddenly there was a flash of light in her eyes. Edisha's positive and negative explosives are not as good as Master's brothers, but Edisha's yin and yang skills are pretty good, and the explosion is quite powerful. Before Edisha finished speaking, the giant bear discovered that the flash of light turned into explosive power, and suddenly, the earth and the mountains and forests were blown to sway. He himself flew out, knocking down trees one after another, and blood spurted out from his mouth. When the big bear raised his head again and looked at Edisha, his eyes were no longer contemptuous, but filled with stormy waves. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an Interstellar Giant Mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3009. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Is such a little kid really so powerful? Was she really setting these traps? There doesn't seem to be much peculiarity about the trap, but if you look back carefully, you will know that this is simply because the other party has calculated his reaction accurately, and he has walked into the other party's arrangement every step of the way. This intelligence is really just a piece of shit. A child? Although he wanted to say that what he saw might be an old witch pretending to be a child. However, a person with strong body and physical strength has a good understanding of the original life breath of living things. At least based on the age of this little kid, he can roughly calculate it, and it is definitely no more than 20 years old. And such a child, let alone one who has cultivated to half-star level, actually has such amazing wisdom in battle. Absolutely stunning. My child, if you don't continue to attack, Uncle can promise not to be angry. After Big Bear got up, he patted the dirty soil on his body and spoke calmly. Aren't you angry? I'm not angry. Why should I be angry with you? You should be protecting someone's cultivation. Since you can't go in this direction, then Uncle can just go over there. No. Not even over there. Huh? Why not? Isn't it the opposite of the direction I'm going over there? Could it be that you have a small heart and a small tolerance, and you don't want to let others pass here? No, there are other traps from Edita over there. If you go there, you might be targeted by the trap again. I'm afraid you'll cry. Dakshin was speechless. How many traps had this little kid made? It's impossible for me to go back the way I came. You have to know that Uncle was chased here. No matter how strong your trap is, you just need to stop him. The pursuer behind Uncle is stronger than Uncle. And you can't use traps to deal with such a dangerous character because he commits murder and arson, right? So let Uncle go. You are not Uncle Edisha. A figure descended from the sky, and its small fins burst out with energy waves. You are not Xiao's uncle either. The words of the two little brats made the big bear speechless and choked for a while. God's pity, he just wanted to increase the intimacy between the two parties, and he didn't want to take advantage of them. Besides, with the appearance of these two little brats under 20 years old, it would be totally unreasonable for his 1,000-year-old self to say that he was their uncle. Exaggerate. The unpleasantness in this man's expression quickly disappeared, and he suddenly stepped back. Two children, I don't want to create a gap with the friend behind you. If I don't leave, I won't leave. Don't stop me from leaving. Both Edisha and Xiao Yu looked even more unhappy. The other party even called her uncle. How could he let him take advantage of this? Bang! Editha attacked the surface of the bear's body first, but her small fist only caused a large amount of bear hair to fly up, and the other party smiled sarcastically. A half-star, and a half-star junior, if you can hurt me at all, you will be considered powerful, huh? Editha's squealing voice started to make loud noises. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. The bear was startled unexpectedly, and then suddenly realized something was wrong. Explode! Editha shouted, and her young fist suddenly released a shocking force. Just now, Edisha had already used her positive and negative explosive power, but what she unleashed at this time was far beyond the positive and negative explosive power she had released. In the galaxy, there is almost no external power, or it is difficult to borrow the power of outsiders, or it is self-restrained in the way of cultivation. If anyone can lend power to the weak, then what will happen to the entire cultivation world? Chaos. However, Jia Yan was by no means a character among them. If he wanted to borrow it, he would borrow it. Edisha is like this, Leda is like this, and even the weak Xiao Yu has some protective power given by Jia Yan. What? The giant bear soul flew into the sky, and I felt that energy that was completely impossible to be at the semi-star level was released from its small fist. This force was so frightening that it unceremoniously collided with his fur defense and struck deep into his internal organs, causing him to spurt out a mouthful of blood. Wait a minute. This little hero, this ant, I have to admit defeat. I really don't mean any harm. Please forgive me. The giant bear stumbled backwards, feeling that the energy in his body was turned upside down, and it was about to beat his body to pieces. When his eyes were about to burst, he quickly begged for mercy from Edisha. As a star, it is extremely rare for him to be able to withstand the blow from the treasure given to Edisha by Jia Yan. Taking a closer look, I found that Edisha was wearing a pair of small gloves, and the gloves bloomed with shocking power. I'll hit you, I'll hit you, I'll hit you. Xiao Yu also rushed in front of her. She did not use the treasure given by Jia Yan, but kept flapping her small fins on the giant bear, as if tickling the giant. Although the giant bear seemed calm, she herself but he enjoyed it endlessly, as if he had made the offender extremely painful. Tell me, who are you? Are you here to harm my master's brother? That is. When Edisha drank, Xiao Yu made a milky sound, and the two milky sounds came and went, which made the giant bear feel a little unreal. Who would have thought that he would be caught by two little brats now that he had already reached the stellar level? Oh! He suddenly lost interest and said, "You two children, please forgive me. I was indeed a passerby, and I was also being chased. I rushed into where you and others were in a panic. I have already apologized. Yes, please forgive me." This was not the first time that the other party had said similar words. A pair of big eyes flashed with analysis. Although she does not yet have a strong control over human nature, her ability to analyze affairs has already come to the fore, and she is far from exhaustive. She is still somewhat confident in judging whether the bear is telling the truth. Looking at the clothes, the bear was in ragged clothes, with mud under his feet, and he was panting. There was a slight possibility that he had escaped. In addition, when the two of them fought with Edisha just now, they did not last long. The thought of fighting is just the feeling of wanting to escape. He does seem to be a person who is on the run. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Who are you running from? Someone from the government? Are you a bad person? Are you a bad person? Edisha and Xiao Yu are asked again. The giant bear waved his hands repeatedly. "You two, please don't put this title on me. I abide by the law and am not a bad person, but those who are chasing me are the real evil people. Although I can't, I will tell you what I did before, but I dare say that the reason why I provoked these people is to seek justice." "Are you seeking justice?" Edisha glanced up and down at the giant bear. The way he looked at him didn't look like an honest bear. "You are definitely not upholding justice," Xiao Yu shouted righteously. It was just parroting. Maybe she didn't even understand the conversation between the two. "You two, you must believe me. Although I am not a very powerful person, I still have a certain reputation in this area. I often dislike bullying and taking action on behalf of the weak." "Really? What if we investigate and find that you are not? If that's not the case, you don't need to do anything, I will kill you myself. As a bear tribe, we are very particular about not changing our surnames." Editha sighed and her voice was long and drawn out, but the little fish beside her didn't know why and also learned to make a long and nasal sound. "You two are?" The giant bear was confused. Naturally, Xiao Yu couldn't explain the reason and looked at Edisha in confusion. Edisha said calmly, "Yes or no, I'll just ask the person who is chasing you." "Huh? They are chasing you?" What Edisha said to the giant bear made him suddenly feel like a bolt from the blue, dripping with cold sweat, and roared, "Two ants, please let me go quickly. If you don't let me go, I can't leave, you might also be implicated." Edisha raised her willow leaf eyebrows, raised her little head proudly, and said coldly, "I'm not afraid. With master and brother behind me, we won't be afraid of anyone." Xiao Yu finally understood the sentence. He raised his head proudly and said, "Xiao Yu is not afraid. With the master behind you, Xiao Yu is not afraid of anyone." The big bear suddenly couldn't laugh or cry. "Haha, these two little girls are quite interesting." Just when the giant bear was thinking about a way to escape, he heard joking laughter coming from the bushes. A creature that looked like a fox walked out of the bushes. Behind her were a barrel-like life form, green animals with large leaves, and two groups of people who looked like giant ants. "It's coming, it's over." The giant bear felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar, and his hands and feet were cold. "Little sister, you two are really great. You can catch a star-level strong man at such a young age. Now that the matter is over, you can step back. No matter what kind of strong man is standing behind you, what happened today will be how's this going." The fox creature that came was walking in an extremely enchanting way. Although it was a fox, it had a strange and thrilling beauty. "No, this is the person Edisha caught, and I won't give it to you. There are also small fish, and there are also small fish caught. Both of them were unafraid and refused to take a step back. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. The charming fox creature paused, looked at the two little guys silently, and hesitated. There is no need to reason with such a child. Sir, let me take this bear tribe back. If they dare to obstruct it, they will be killed. In the fox creature, the barrel-like creature stepped forward. The 5-meter-high barrel was extremely astonishing, and it pressed toward the two little girls overwhelmingly with an astonishing momentum. Don't come over here. Edisha raised her fists in a big way, and the power reaching the semi-star level was vaguely spreading in her small fists. It's just that she is not a combat-type creature, not to mention that her strength has only just reached the half-star level. Regardless of being on par with the truly powerful, even if she is on par with the giant bear that was restrained by her, she is still far behind. The other party simply ignored Edisha's threat and walked up to not far away from the two of them. He is indeed a bad guy. Realizing that this guy was about to take action, Edisha shouted loudly and struck first. Her glove instantly glowed and she punched the huge wooden barrel monster in front of her. How dare you shine even with a pearl of rice? In the exposed red eyes of the barrel, brilliance suddenly burst out. The arms on both sides of the barrel were raised with lightning and flint, and with a slap, they were about to use their supreme strength to knock Edisha away. Even considering that there will be some extremely powerful beings behind these two children, the other party is definitely not a vegetarian. If they are worried about this and that, it is impossible for them to become what they are now in this area. At most, show mercy and try not to kill. The giant bear was tied up with 2 bundles of vines by Edisha and could not move. It was already too late to escape. At this time, he had no choice but to yell, "You can't believe him. This person is the most cruel and murderous person. You too, my aunt promised him that she will take advantage of you and attack you when you are not prepared." Huh? You're talking nonsense. The barrel looked at the giant bear and felt angry, so he slapped it even faster. Chiang! Edisha met the opponent's iron gauntlet, and in mid-air, a shocking brilliance bloomed. It is not that simple to say that it is a gift from Jia Yan, but it is definitely not using Jia Yan's own power. Otherwise, not to mention the way of energy supply, it will also cause the good yin and yang Dao magic weapon to become a disposable item. This runs counter to Jia Yan's original intention of developing yin and yang Tao instruments. Jia Yan's firing method of yin and yang is to purify the energy from the power of Edisha's body, and then use the complex conversion method of the magic weapon to release the unique yin and yang energy, which has its own positive and negative explosive power. Is not a serious explosion, it is a means of greatly increasing the attack power. Star level. Just 1 level higher than me. Edisha felt the opponent's power, and the brilliance of power bloomed from the gloves became even stronger. Because she felt that this wooden barrel seemed funny, but its person actually reached the peak of the intermediate star level, which was still much stronger than the primary level strength of the giant bear star. The only solution now is to look forward to the gloves. Otherwise, she believed that Jia Yan, who was in seclusion, would definitely be watching here. If it was a last resort, Jia Yan would not choose to leave seclusion, but if it really came to that situation, he would never be a coward. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. His beloved littles Hineo and his beloved apprentice were threatened, so Jia Yan would definitely be willing to take action. Boom. Although there was a lot to say, the change only happened in a blink of an eye, and the two sides had already collided. Rumble, rumble. Behind the giant bear and the barrel, the group of powerful men who came quickly became sluggish. Editha's glove fell and collided with the slap from the barrel, causing a loud explosion of gongs and drums, and 2 feet of sand was blown up from the ground. Not to mention the power, what shocked them the most was that Edisha actually withstood the barrel creature's brazen attack in the first brief moment. What a joke! Is this a battle between the pinnacle of the mid-stellar level and the beginning of the semi-stellar level? Why is the style of painting so different? Chapter 12 Why the painting style is a bit different. Come to Cheateon.com to subscribe. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3010. Rebirth of the starry sky giant mosquito. Shouldn't it be a mid-level peak powerhouse from a star who crushed the kid to pieces in an instant, threw him into the grass, and even captured him and demanded a ransom from his family? Why was it that the two sides were evenly matched for a moment? Fortunately, the scene of Edisha resisting the opponent ended in a flash of lightning. Then she rubbed the ground with her legs and retreated backwards, leaving 2 deep footprints on the ground. Yeah. Under the barrel, the little fish rushed forward, and slapped hard with its small fins, hitting the barrel without leaving any trace at all, but the other party seemed to have not heard anything and ignored it at all. These 2 children have high fighting spirit. If they had not died, they would have a bright future in the future. It is a pity. Bucket smiled jokingly, and then he stretched out his hand to grab it while the wind and thunder surged with his peach-shaped palm. Don't touch the little fish. Wisps of power suddenly appeared on Edisha's gloves, and a large number of threads were echoing in her eyes. This was similar to the computing power of a computer. It was also the reason why Edisha wanted to maintain the advantages of her brain after becoming a human. After a lot of calculations, drills, and countless simulations, I finally developed the skills. The transformation of intelligent brains into humans is an extremely rare thing in the world. Even if there are intelligent brains that simulate life forms, or even lifelike bodies that evolve into living races, what they are often doing is the reproduction of the race and facing the enemies around them. Encirclement and suppression will not evolve in the direction of silently observing the strong and learning from countless plans to eventually become stronger. However, Edisha is a special case. Her innate conditions are too good. Not only does she have a lot of stable time, but after she evolves into a living body, there are always fights between strong people around her, and Jia Yan arrives like this. He has used the top powerhouses in the lower ranks of territory lords as guides and references. This is definitely the one with the best conditions among all the intelligent brains that have evolved into living beings. Among the so-called strong ones, it seems that everyone needs arduous and outstanding training, and slowly walks towards the road of becoming strong step by step. However, often in such situations, there are exceptions, such as new races and new ways of training. When it was first born, it was difficult for experts from other cultivation paths to understand it. The strangeness created a new race and a new cultivation method for beings. In a short period of time, they could easily become invincible in the world, at least with great advantages. Editha's current situation is just like that. Ding! In her big watery eyes, a large number of silk threads began to combine and connect. Just like the evolution of electronics in computer components, a large number of lines were connected, and a large amount of external intelligence and body intelligence were finally successfully mastered by her. If it weren't for the current crisis situation, Edisha might have continued to practice and make sure that nothing went wrong before officially launching the 1.0 version. But now that things have come to a head, the crisis has forced her to implement it directly, which can be regarded as a rush to get it on the shelves. And the effect, even she herself didn't know. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant mosquito. You still dare to come? It's not that easy for you to save this kid. As a star-level barrel creature, he noticed that Edisha was flying towards her again, and his eyes became ferocious. He doesn't want to kill these 2 little guys, but it doesn't mean that he can't injure them. Anyway, they are the ones who are aggressive and unyielding. I think even if there are some top-notch beings behind these two little brats, they will understand his behavior. Moreover, he is just worried about the possible masters behind the two little ones, which does not mean that he will be afraid. After all, the forces behind them are by no means ordinary existences. Hey, let's take a small punishment but a big punishment. One of the palms of this wooden barrel creature is aimed at Xiaoyuer, and the other is aimed at Edisha. After all, as a star level, he has to deal with a mere semi-star level beginner who is not a combat type, and the other is even a starry sky level. They were all barely able to do it, and each one of them looked up to them. Ding! A large number of white light spots flowed through Edisha's eyes, and countless calculations flowed in the light spots. The threads in her eyes quickly evolved into the best plan. "Ea!" Edisha yelled, avoiding the important point and bypassing the palm area, and hit the barrel's wrist directly with her small fist. The next moment, the precise landing point hit the wrist, and her body was rubbed by the wrist. But not afraid. Boom! The wooden barrel creature only felt that his palm was hit by a seemingly inconspicuous attack, but the joint of the wrist, which was the joint of his wooden body, made a clicking sound, and was hit in a vital spot in an instant. The wrist and the palm completely separated from the arm and fell to the ground. Boom! The sound of the palm falling to the ground was so loud that it shook the sky, and what followed was the silence of the many opponents who besieged this place. How can this be? Obviously that little brat looks like just a small half-star beginner. Even if they misjudged her, she is a genius fighting powerhouse, but she is only a half-star beginner, and she can still hit her with one blow. Just break the wrist of a star? This is a step too far. Get out of here. Editha succeeded with one blow, but did not stop. She turned around again, swept up her short legs, kicked the wrist of another barrel creature with her toes, and kicked it away from the palm of the little fish. If one side is due to luck and both sides are kicked off, then it is not luck. What an eye-opener. Big Bear was behind the battle group, his hands were tied, and he felt that the scene was a bit strange. You know, even at the elementary level of a star, it would be difficult for him to defeat the barrel creature. In other words, he just couldn't beat the barrel creature. However, he seemed to be being played by himself just now, and he seemed to be just a weakling. One of them suddenly burst out with strength stronger than himself, kicking the barrel creature's two palms in pieces. This is simply too intense. Looking at the two small figures, especially the explosive strength of Edisha, everyone had absurd thoughts in their hearts. Today's kids are so fierce. Is there any talent in this generation? But this talent is too fierce. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. The barrel creature felt a chill rising up. If others were a little shocked by Edisha's performance, then as the person involved, he was frightened. Losing face is one thing, but another thing is that so far, he has not seen how the little thing under his feet destroyed both of his wrists. It seems that such a little thing is only a half-star elementary level. Even if she used a weird method to kick her two wrists off just now, the power that burst out was only a half-star elementary level. I've heard a lot about geniuses who kill enemies across different levels, but even in the southern superstar, a region where such geniuses thrive, I've never heard of a semi-star level elementary being defeating an intermediate level star. This step up is a bit too intense. Let's put it this way, even the original Jia Yan had never done it, and never even imagined that he could defeat a star at the beginning of the semi-star level. Of course, Jia Yan was not cultivating at the half-star level at the beginning, and he seemed to have achieved the venerable level and crossed the star level, but the way of cultivation was different, and it was still different from Edisha. Are you okay? Just when everyone was panicking and even feeling a little confused due to the shock, Edisha had already picked up Xiaoyuer and came to the edge of the battlefield, looking at the little guy carefully. Compared to the star level or semi-star level, a small starry sky level fish is like the flowers and plants on the roadside, the kind that will die if touched, but she still dares to rush up. Really good. It's okay, Sister Adisha, you are so awesome. Xiao Yu didn't hesitate to praise her, and Adisha's nose instantly turned up after hearing this. That's not true. Sister Adisa is very powerful. Xiao hide it. If you have the opportunity to fight the enemy with Sister Adisa again in the future, okay. Okay. The little fish obediently hid in the grass. After entering, a pair of big fish eyes turned around to reveal her, as if others didn't know she was hiding in the grass. Adisha turned her head and looked at everyone who was stunned. Don't bully us, we will beat people. She raised her little fists in a decent manner and grinned, but she didn't have any momentum, she was just cute. But the barrel creature was terrified. He squatted down, picked up his broken palm, and carefully put it on with the power of his brain waves. He heard 2 clicks, and the broken palm was reattached. It just looked like it was attached. Even if there was nothing on the north side, there was absolutely nothing inside. It's a serious injury. Let alone fighting, I'm afraid it will be extremely difficult to use this broken palm normally in the past few months. What do you think we should do? The barrel creature retreated quietly, looking at the cute little Aditha who raised her little fist like a ghost and threatened everyone, and spoke to the group of companions behind her for help. There's something wrong with this kid. The kid who was hiding just now seems to have weird attack power. Forget it, let's not make trouble. Yes, there seems to be a looming power in the tree hole over there. If there is an adult in their family. Forget it, let's go. The guests looked at each other. You must know that these 2 little brats are extremely weird. The adults behind them might be really powerful. If they really fight, even if they can win, they will provoke the people behind them. That gentleman. This chapter is not finished, click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. I'm afraid it will be difficult for them to leave by then. This group of beings are still discerning, walking on the southern star, and knowing how to advance, retreat, and make choices. This is the basic quality of people in a mixed society. This kind of quality often requires them to make some seemingly stupid risks, but in fact they are quite good. Right decision. Even if there is no strong person behind the little brat, even if their judgment is wrong, they have done it. At least they have avoided huge dangers. On this planet, the more radical beings are often dead, even if they are already dead. Those beings are often able to achieve some incredible feats because they dare to take risks and gain great rewards. However, those who dare to take risks are still the ones who die. Those who dare not take risks can live relatively long. Next time, when we meet again, I will definitely make you 2 little guys pay. When the barrel creature retreated, he looked at Adisha and his teeth itched with hatred. He has already met with 2 little guys, Adisa, and this feud can be regarded as forged, and the hatred between his palms can also be regarded as a very serious feud. If they meet next time, the little guy will not have anyone else around to help him, and love if Disha's strength is seen through by this barrel creature, he will definitely take action. For the creatures in the southern superstar, it is okay to say that they are cautious, but there is nothing wrong with saying that they have grievances and hatreds. The two seem to be contradictory, but in fact they are not as incompatible as imagined, at least for the barrel creatures. In this way, he wants revenge. Get out! Get out! That's right, get out of here! Edisha yelled loudly, and the little fish stopped fighting and happily rushed out of the grass where it was hiding, swaying its fins, yelling loudly, and spitting out bubbles from time to time. After waiting for the uninvited guests, they all stopped again and left a little discouraged. The 2 little ones looked at each other and burst into laughter. This was the first time that they had faced off against an enemy so neatly and won. It's amazing, the two little princesses are really geniuses. A flattering laugh came from behind, and when Edisha looked back, the giant bear had already changed its face, looking like it was admiring Edisha extremely. I have lived for hundreds or thousands of years, but I have never seen or even heard of a person with such amazing fighting talent as you. A half-star elementary level defeated an intermediate star. You are so talented in fighting. It is not something that those with combat talents can explain. I am afraid that if you spread the word, your reputation will become famous nearby. Even the lords of countless forces will flock to you. However, I believe that you can cultivate a strong person like you is destined to be no ordinary character, and perhaps even those lords cannot compare to the strong person behind you. Editha was surprised. This guy is such a chameleon. How can a talkative person turn into a dog licker so easily? The adults behind us are of course top-notch experts. Even ordinary domain lords at the lower level can't even think of being compared to the adults behind us. When Edisha said a word, the expression on the giant bear's face stagnated, and his breathing stopped for a moment. After a long time, like a fish that landed on the beach, he finally remembered to breathe, panting, and his eyes widened. You mean, the person standing behind you is not an ordinary being, not even an ordinary domain lord, nor a senior domain lord, but a high-ranking domain lord. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant Mosquito. He was really shocked. Editha's fighting talent is able to defeat a half-star level star. This talent is shocking and amazing. However, no matter how powerful the talent is, it will only be used in the future. No matter how powerful the talent is, who can guarantee it? Can he become a top powerhouse? Didn't you see, there are countless rumors in history that geniuses appear once every few thousand years, 10,000 years, or millions of years, but in the end they either died on the way, or they reached the star level and could not go on. Or they will be stuck at the domain lord level until they die of old age. Even if there are not many geniuses who reach the senior domain lord level, let alone those in the lower domain lord level. Chapter 13. What a genius indeed. Come to Cheateon.com to subscribe. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3011. Rebirth of the starry sky giant mosquito. Those who actually reach the lower level of domain lord are those who can truly reach the pinnacle of genius directly, and the so-called genius is just a small possibility of reaching the lower level of territory lord. As for those above the lower level of domain lord, sorry, even among the superstars, in ordinary people's perception, the territory lord backstage is already the pinnacle of all powerful people. Almost no one knows that there really is someone stronger than the territory lord backstage in the world. Exist. Even those who pass through the gate of the black hole area, have been threatened by the Tai Shang, or heard his words, will eventually be erased by the Tai Shang's memory and forget his existence. In other words, the weak will no matter what, the heaven they saw was just the lower level of domain lords, which is why they were called mighty. Is the great, mighty, there? As for what Edisha said, even the lower ranks of territory lords cannot be compared, the giant bear should just listen to it. How powerful are the late-level powers of the territory lords? For stars like them, they are roughly evenly matched. Even if some powers are stronger, it is impossible to ignore others of the same level. In reality, that's about it. If you want to leave, just leave. They will definitely not dare to come over for the time being. If you walk through this area, they won't be able to catch up with you. The thread in Edisha's eyes slowly receded. No, this lady, there are definitely spies hiding around me. If I walk out of here, I will definitely die without a burial place. Please take pity on me, old bear, and let me follow you. Adisha looked at him casually. Are you sure? Our adults don't necessarily like to see outsiders. If he wakes up from cultivation and is unhappy when he sees you and slaps you to death, you can only blame yourself. The giant bear was made nervous by what Edisha said. After a moment of wavering eyes, he nodded fiercely and said, "It means death anyway. I would rather believe that a big shot who has cultivated gifted and talented children like you will not attack the weak easily. I choose to stay." Adisha snorted coldly. "Then you stay, let's see if you die." She just said this, but she actually knew that Jia Yanzhen was not the kind of person who casually kills the weak. Xiao Yu imitated Aditha's tone, "Humph, let's see if you die." Ba ba. The giant bear was so nervous that he would be lying if he said he wasn't nervous, so he didn't say anything and just watched the two little girls chattering among themselves. Soon he found himself feeling slightly relaxed. Because these two little girls had been so majestic just now, and after the crisis was over, they were also smiling, no different from ordinary little girls. The person who raised a girl with such an ordinary mentality is definitely not a heinous person. The giant bear thought that he must have guessed correctly, and quietly entered the recovery stage. Just this wait, which lasted for several days, made the giant bear more and more anxious. Those guys who left the outside world might come back with stronger ones. Could it be that he chose the wrong path? That's not right. If I choose to leave by myself, I will definitely be caught by those local snakes in this vast sea of trees. In any case, choosing to stay here is the most correct thing for me to do, but the future is uncertain. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. At the same time, outside the sea of trees, a group of strong men vaguely surrounded this area. Under the welcome of the powerful men, a human woman-like creature with almond-shaped eyes and peach cheeks, with a slightly seductive appearance, came to this mountain forest. Is the giant bear among them? Yes, he thought he had the protection of a strong man, so he hid here without any scruples. Haha, are you a strong man? Are you really scared off without even seeing the other person's face? Well, Lord Protector, of course we didn't retreat without any basis. You must forgive me. The wooden barrel creature had already recovered its wrists. At this time, its hands were apologetic, and it was crouching at the woman-like creature from time to time. The woman Pingting moved her body gracefully. Upon closer inspection, she discovered that she was not a human being at all, but the lower body of an insect with countless legs, which made people feel numb. No matter how beautiful the upper body is, the lower body is ruined, at least for the aesthetics of people on Earth. Of course, for alien life forms, maybe this lower body is a place of beauty. Since the strong man like you who insists on entering tranquility is a peak existence, I should believe in you and not enter it for the time being. Let's wait for the arrival of several other protectors and elders. The elders are coming too? This. The wooden barrel creature and several colleagues around him were shocked when they heard this. Yes, the information that the guys from the Bear Clan have is too important for us. In order to avoid leaking the news, an elder decided to come in person. It just happened to be able to see what the powerful man in silence was. How sacred! The woman's charming face also showed a bit of admiration when she mentioned the elder. The wind outside is, a bit biting. Jia Yan, who was meditating, felt a little noise inside the tree cave. It's just that he didn't feel the danger of being too strong when Eddie and Xiao Yu were against each other. Even when Eddie and the others were hesitant and ready to go out to help, Eddie also burst out with Lianxia. Yandu has some surprising abilities, and can defeat the enemy in the future. In this way, Jia Yan has been in concentration. Until now, he felt that someone was arranging troops outside the mountain forest where he and others were, and he had a premonition that even he needed to be treated with some calmness in this crisis. Region Lord's lower level. He was slightly startled, then shook his head and smiled. The Domain Lord's backstep is not a big cabbage. He has just seen giant trees. There are so many and he bumped into them. This is a quite normal judgment. This place is far away from Jushu city, but it is only within 1,000,000 kilometers. Jushu is a lower level territory lord. Although he cannot move easily, he will never let his strength go. If a second person of the same level appears within the radiation range, even if there is a person of the same level who wants to settle here, after sensing the breath of the giant tree, he will choose to retreat on his own, otherwise it will be an attitude of starting a war. Even if Jia Yan is not a native life form of superstar, he can still feel this code of conduct. So he didn't really believe that a powerful person from the lower realm lord level would arrive again. Then there's nothing to worry about. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. This water from the sky really compliments me. It even helped me digest the last 2 white dolphin bodies that I had swallowed earlier. In this way, my strength has improved again. In fact, even if it is the lower level of the territory lord who is coming, Jia Yan is a little eager to give it a try. He is an extremely young rear-level territory lord. At his age, it is normal for him to be fierce and brave. Because he had 2 little brats by his side, he wouldn't be like that, but he didn't say that even when the enemy attacked, he just sat back and ignored them. If a junior territory lord comes to stir up trouble, I'm sorry, it just becomes a touchstone for Jia Yan. He wants to test whether his newly promoted power can properly compete with a senior territory lord. With this in mind, Jia Yan continued to immerse himself in the state of cultivation. In this way, time continues to pass quickly. Finally, one day, a certain momentum from outside the sky suddenly appeared. As soon as this aura appeared, it was like a storm, and with supreme magnanimity, he proudly broke through the sound barrier, and the rolling thunder suddenly appeared, flying directly across the distance between heaven and earth, and arrived at the enemy's base camp outside this mountain forest. I've met the elder. There, the barrel creature and the so-called female guardian stood up and saluted him in fear. No need to be polite, is the powerful person you mentioned among them? Yes, although I don't believe in their judgment, just to be safe, I still invited the elders to come and ask for your forgiveness. The insect-bodied female protector respectfully asked for punishment. The visitor did not squint his eyes and said coldly, "It has nothing to do with you. If the people inside cannot be recognized by me, those who lied about the military situation before will be killed without mercy." Hearing this, the wooden barrel creature and the few people nearby who had besieged this place suddenly swayed, as if they were struck by lightning. But think about it, this elder, such a strong person, has been working hard all the way. If he rushes in vain, if those who lied about military information are not even punished, wouldn't everyone have to lie about military information? Thinking of this, the wooden barrel creature gritted his teeth and said, "I dare not hide it from the elders. Although we have not directly seen the person in seclusion, we have seen the 2 little girls with him. Every talent they are all excellent, and there is even one who has half-star level means of transcending and fighting stars, otherwise we would not take his words seriously." Oh? Half-star versus star. The elder was a creature whose whole body was hidden in a cloak. He didn't seem to have a tall and powerful body, but his looming figure made people look very mysterious. He briefly sensed it, nodded and said, "There are indeed 2 girls playing inside. Although they can't see their strength clearly, one of them does look like a half-star. If this is true, you will be punished by death. You can't escape, but you can't escape the sin." The barrel creature let out a long sigh of relief. Their force is said to have strict rules, but beyond the rules there is nothing more than human kindness. Just now they said they wanted to kill their elders, but they were able to change their words all of a sudden, which shows that they are very flexible. This is why they are willing to work and even die for this force. Okay, let me, the elder, see what is inside. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. As the elder spoke, his murderous intent was revealed and he strode into the depths of the jungle. Go, follow. The female guardian of the lower body of the Zerg next to the barrel creature spoke repeatedly, causing the barrel creature and other ant soldiers to follow quickly. With the elders accompanying them, each of them became more confident. Finally, the injury is almost healed. For so many days, the powerful people outside really dare not enter. Could it be that they are really gone? The giant bear silently stopped meditating in the depths of the jungle, feeling the vitality gradually returning to his body and feeling extremely strange. The people in that force were quite domineering, and he had seen their tyranny before, but now, that force didn't dare to take action because there might be a mighty in the mountains and forests. This shows that the name of the mighty one is so resounding that it is just a catchy rhetoric, which makes them really dare not take action. Of course, it also shows that the mighty one is so terrifying. I'll wait another 3 to 5 days. If there's still no movement, even if the Hermit Master doesn't show up, I can say goodbye. After all, even if that powerful person is really besieged by the outside world, over time, there will definitely be trouble because of someone. I will leave for other things and wait 3 to 5 days. Even if they are still here now, they will probably leave by then. Besides, maybe they have really given up on me. The giant bear thought. Someone is coming. Suddenly, in the open space outside the bushes, Adisha, who was playing a slapstick game, suddenly stopped playing. Xiao Yu also stopped moving sensibly. What's the matter, Sister Adisha? Is someone coming in? Yes, someone entered the jungle. It's amazing. Several of the traps I set didn't affect him. Hearing this, Xiao Yu was not too surprised, but the giant bear was startled. He has finally experienced how powerful Edis's so-called trap is. The previous barrel creatures and other existences were tricked by Edis's trap design, and it seemed that they lost a few people. But now, Edis's methods have failed to make it difficult for the visitors. Those who come are definitely strong. A stronger existence than Tong and others before. Thinking of this, the big bear stood up, walked outside the bushes, and came to the side of the two little boys. I've seen these two young ladies. I wonder what happened outside. Adisha looked at him unfavorably and snorted, You must have caused it? I asked you to a long time ago. If you don't go, you are so angry. Wait for us adults wake up and kill you. Aditha is also very loyal. In the past few days, the giant bear usually doesn't provoke the two of them, let alone disturb their play. However, when the giant bear is needed, he can often show up at the first time. I worked for them, such as cooking delicious food, telling stories, etc. I tried my best to please them and said a few words to them, which left a good impression. Therefore, even though Adisha said harsh words, she did not fail to do what she should do. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. People from outside, stop. The little girl stood in front of the bushes with her hands on her hips. She could already hear the rustling footsteps. She deliberately tried not to sound too immature and shouted loudly. He just pretends to be mature, but his voice is still quite childish, and it doesn't feel very reliable. Oh, my little friend, you want me and others to stop. Does this mountain forest belong to you? If it doesn't belong to you, why do we have to stop? There was joking laughter outside. The voice was quite old, and sounded like a dying old man. Aditha is not a little brat who is easily deceived by words, she is a resourceful brain. Hey, old man, What you said seems to make sense, but there are problems everywhere. Although this is not our territory, our adults are retreating here, so it can be regarded as ours for the time being. Chapter 14 Elders come to Kidian to subscribe. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3012. Rebirth of the starry sky giant mosquito. It's an offense for you to come in without asking. If you want a formal visit, please reveal your identity and exit outside the forest. Wait until we let you in before coming in. What Adisha said was so clear and logical that the visitors outside were a little surprised. Haha, what a sharp-tongued little girl, but what you said is wrong. The figure under the cloak said with a sarcastic smile, we have only good relations with this area. Although this place is not our base, it is the same as our base. Therefore, setting foot here is nothing at all. It is you and others, practicing at my friend's place without authorization. If the master holds me accountable, it would be a bit disrespectful. The other party's words were upright, and it sounded as if he was giving good advice as soon as he opened his mouth. There was absolutely no mistake in it. After practicing to a certain extent, the words spoken are as easy as the words spoken, and people can even involuntarily have the idea that what the other person said is reasonable. However, after hearing this, Adisha laughed directly. She is not good at cultivation, but she cannot actually refute the other party in essence. But there was a huge problem in the other party's conversation, which directly caused his long series of words to fail. Adisha also lost her recognition of the strong man's freedom of speech. Are you saying that we are practicing here without authorization? Old man, my master and I are practicing here without authorization. Even if you ask the old tree, it will never say that we are practicing here without authorization. Oh. The other party was suddenly startled. As a strong person, he also has a strong ability to grasp the hearts of the weak. Insight into people's hearts is their standard, but he heard the meaning in the other party's words in Adisha's words just now. Correct meaning. In other words, Adisha was right. Did the old tree really agree with this group of people and practice here? How can it be? The face behind the cloak showed an uncertain look. You must know that it took a lot of time for their forces to obtain the recognition of the giant tree to a certain extent, especially after they contributed a huge amount of raw materials for cultivating the water of the sky before they gained the recognition of the giant tree. And what did the two little kids in front of them and the mysterious strong man who was still cultivating inside the tree cave pay? It doesn't look like they can afford a lot of materials either. Children, don't be ashamed of yourself. The old tree exists. Even to us, it is an old man with a long lifespan. How can you win the recognition of its elders? Haha, it's very simple. We just beat it until we don't dare to disagree. The figure in the big cloak stiffened and looked unnatural. Don't you dare to disagree even after being beaten? He thought he heard something wrong. Although that old giant tree rarely moves once in hundreds of years, every time it moves, it will be with overwhelming force. Although its strength is not said to be above the level of the territory lord, it is definitely the territory lord's queen. The first-class level in the hierarchy. The mysterious man who practices here can beat up a giant tree to the point where he doesn't dare to disagree. That is no longer an ordinary lower-level domain lord. And the mysterious elder himself in the big cloak. Little girl, you can eat whatever you want, but you can't talk casually. If you talk nonsense today, you will be retaliated or even hunted down by the giant tree city in the future. It will be the consequence of your talking too much. They don't care whether you are a little kid or not. Children's. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E /U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant mosquito. The elder in the cloak said seriously. Adisha is not talking nonsense. Do you believe it or not? Are you still beating us now? Adisha pouted. She was indeed not talking nonsense, but she did not indicate that Master Jia Yan had reached an agreement with the giant tree conditionally. Adisha didn't ask Jia Yan clearly about the power of the giant tree, but judging from Jia Yan's attitude and behavior, it was obvious that even Jia Yan had a lot of admiration for his strength. But even if Adisha knew that Jia Yan couldn't defeat the giant tree, she would not admit it, let alone show cowardice. She is confident that she will not cause too much trouble to Jia Yan. The reason is too simple, because even if Jia Yan cannot defeat the giant tree cannot be a threat to Jia Yan. Jia Yan is a subspace genius. Subspace talents have reached the lower level of domain masters. There are almost no stronger ones who can threaten them. Even if there are existences like Tai's Hang, without them being born at all, Jia Yan is equivalent to having a gold medal for immunity from death. No one can do anything about him. This is also the reason why Jia Yan took two little kids to the South Star to travel, knowing that with his current strength, it was impossible to become invincible in the world at the lower level of the territory lord. Have confidence in your ability to protect yourself. But now, the situation is still a little different. Jia Yan is practicing, and God knows what the progress is, so even if Adisha is a little crazy, as long as she can buy some time, she thinks it is worth it. Kid, everyone can talk about words, but without strength, it is easy to get slapped in the face. If you really think your master has that kind of ability, why not let him show up to meet us? If you really have that kind of ability, we can turn around and leave without saying a word, but if you don't have that kind of ability, in this case, we will take the big bear away, and you must also compensate us with an object that is attractive to us, otherwise it's a bit too frustrating for me and other people to be killed and injured. The man in the big cloak looked at the tree hole with twinkling eyes, and then calmly put forward his conditions. My master is practicing, didn't you even listen to me? Adisha frowned and said impatiently. The man in the big cloak didn't say anything. The strong man with the wooden barrel behind him snorted coldly. You said he is practicing, he is practicing. Maybe he is pretending to be a ghost. What kind of cultivation can be so deadly? I don't believe it. I will wait if we fight him, he can still hold back. You dare. Aditha frowned even more, her eyebrows stood upright, and she fiercely stared at the barrel monster. The monster was glared at by Aditha. After all, it was an existence that had been defeated by Aditha. His aura immediately dropped, and he retreated without saying a word. The elder in the cloak was even more helpless. He felt that the guys around him were a little bit useless, and even he was afraid of such little ones. He was as cold as ice and no longer cared about so many etiquette issues. After talking for so long, the other party did not come out of the tree hole, which meant that the other party was either really afraid or really practicing, no matter which one. For him, it is the best time to take action and further test. He took a step forward. Don't come over here. Aditha yelled. This chapter is not finished, click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Xiao Yu also shouted nervously beside her, don't come over. This elder is about to go over. After talking for so long, you and other two weak beings are able to communicate with me for such a long time. It is already my elder who has given you face, but the one behind you doesn't even have the face. Being willing to show up is not the way to be a guest. Since you look down on me, elder, can I take this as a provocation? Bang. Adisha raised her little hand, and there were two stone-like substances in the bushes. They collided and burst into pieces. The other party's expression changed. He looked carefree on the surface, but he was actually a bit wary. At this moment, he felt that the bursting power was definitely not at the semi-star level, so he immediately gave way. However, the energy that shoots through the surroundings, no matter how you look at it, is at the most stellar level. For his strength, it's not a big deal at all. Little girl, is this your ability? With a body of half-star level, being able to display such a trap ability is indeed worthy of the ability they praised. However, this small amount of power is nothing to me. It's useless, so why don't you just surrender and tell me the secret of this technique, maybe we can spare you. The man in the big cloak, with lightning eyes, looked at the waving fingers of Edisha and felt that there was no power fluctuation on them, but he was quite interested in the fact that they exerted such bursting power. If everyone in their force was at the semi-star level and could exert such star-level power, then the combat effectiveness of their force would probably increase a lot in vain. Edisha uses positive and negative explosive power. Perhaps Jia Yan himself has not noticed that he has accepted so many disciples and founded the Yin-Yang sect in the central star region of the Milky Way. Many people have learned the superficial knowledge of Yin-Yang Dao from him, but when it comes to the existence of the core mastery of Yin-Yang Dao, but there are not many. But Edisha can really be considered one of them. The reason is also very simple. Edisha is a smart brain, and her growth and the database have a lot of records about the Yin and Yang Dao. It can also be said that Jia Yan's Yin and Yang Dao itself is actually in Edisha's. Under the attention, she witnessed every concept and idea created. In fact, Edisha was involved in it. And Edisha witnessed the entire process of the several stages of changes in Jia Yan's conception. Perhaps as a smart brain, Edisha didn't have any extra thoughts about those data that were just data, but when she became a living body, those memories and data became her best tools for studying Yin and Yang. The nourishment even helped her take a big step forward in this skill. That's why today, she can use half-star power to set up Yin and Yang traps very skillfully. Some of the methods may not be much worse than Jia Yan, because she has a very smart brain. The existence of calculation ability. Pity. Still too weak. Humph, you just wanted the big bear, then you wanted us to compensate you, and now you want to take advantage of the master's Yin and Yang Dao. As expected, you guy, if you give in even one step, you will keep pressing forward. I won't be fooled. We will do whatever you say. Don't accept it? Edisha was quite influenced by Jia Yan, and her personality was a little bit out of control, and she wouldn't give in. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Xiao Yuer swam around behind Edisha, shouting and screaming loudly, "Don't accept it! Don't accept it! You are a bad person." The two little kids just stood in front of the man in the cloak until the other side walked step by step in front of Edisha. The traps around them broke out one by one, but they were regarded as disturbing flies by him. Let, or ignore, directly resolve it, without causing any real hindrance to it at all. When the other party came to the eyes of the two little guys, although it was not as tall as the barrel creature and had reached a height of 5 meters, it looked like an ordinary earthling. However, in front of the two little ones with the size of a toddler, it was still like a mountain. It shrouded the two of them in shadow. Edisha refused to retreat. Her eyes were still wide open, her big clear and bright eyes glaring angrily. There was no trace of fear in her eyes. "Oh, little girl, I have arrived here, are you still not afraid?" "Don't be afraid, why should I be afraid of you?" The other party was silent for a while, then said coldly, "Aren't you afraid that I will tear you apart?" Edisha burst out laughing, and although the little fish behind her was a little baffled, she happily let out a crisp girlish laugh. She didn't know why Sister Edisha was laughing, but it was right to laugh along anyway. After finishing her laughter, Edisha raised her little head, looked at each other fearlessly, and said bluntly, "Try to tear me apart and see if you can do it." "Well, Elder De Huo glanced at the tree hole not far away, and then looked at Edisha and Xiao Yuer. The two little guys were so bold and courageous in this situation, which caused him to hesitate again. That's what you said. In the end, the many pairs of eyes behind him and the attitude of Editha looking down on him made him feel extremely unhappy and decided to take action. Tong and others were already daunted by these two little brats. If he, a dignified elder, was defeated because of these two brats, it would be too generous to make people laugh. He raised his hand to avoid it. The claws on his arms represented that he seemed to have a body similar to that of a human being, but in fact, he was probably not the same thing as a human being. Ah! This time, Edisha knew she was scared and screamed. Ah! Xiao Er yelled after him, with no emotion in his voice. Snort. Just when the cloaked elder finally made his murderous intention, a cold snort came from inside the tree hole. Editha crouched down holding her head, as if nothing had happened. After hearing the sound, she stopped acting panicked. He even raised the corner of his mouth, feeling a little complacent. Boom! An aura visible to the naked eye rose from inside the tree hole. You know, this is in the southern superstar. The strength of the strong people inside the superstar can be weakened by more than 1,000 times. Of course, the cost-effective method cannot be so hasty, but the visual difference is actually not much different, so they can be in the superstar. A being who releases such an earth-shattering momentum is definitely not an ordinary character. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. That's true. The expression of the elder in the cloak was suddenly shaken, and he turned his raised palm into a slap with a fierce look, but the direction he aimed at was no longer Edissa, but the surging momentum. Bang! The two intersected in the air, and Elder Dehao felt that this momentum was like the scorching sun that was always panicking, hitting him directly, causing an extremely terrifying shock, and then his whole body seemed to be shaken away by an irresistible wall. Flying backwards. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3013. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Editha and Xiao Yuer, who were very close at hand, seemed to be completely unaffected by this aura and seemed to be unharmed. Even Xiao Yuer looked at the strong man flying backwards, with a confused look on his face as he didn't know what was going on. He was baffled. Kind of cute. He, master brother, are you out of seclusion? However, not long after the strong man flew out, Edisha stood up and shouted loudly into the tree hole, which made Xiao Yuer understand. Master, your seclusion is over. There are bad people bullying Sister Edisha and Xiao Yuer. Beat them up. Xiao Yuer also has a bit of a human spirit tendency and complains directly. You two little guys will cause trouble for me. A slightly helpless voice came from inside the tree hole, but this voice seemed to be reproaching, but the feeling in the tone was more of a touch of doting. Then, a dark flying creature walked out gracefully. The man in the big cloak probably felt some kind of pressure in his heart. He put down the confrontation with the two juniors from Edisha and turned his attention to the direction of Jia Yan. The eyes of the two started fighting fiercely in the air. Invisible thunder, asthma, and clouds, but this is what happened in everyone's mind. If you look carefully, there is no sign of thunder in reality. You are the one meditating in the tree hole? You are indeed not an ant. The other party's eyes were sinister for a moment, and then he spoke calmly. In fact, I was a little shocked in my heart. Although the strength between the two parties above the superstars cannot be guessed without getting close or testing, the strong one is still the strong one, and some clues can still be seen in some ways. For example, now, Jia Yan also feels that the elder in front of him should be some kind of strong man, but with this strength. Whether it is the lower level of the domain lord, it is difficult to say. The other party must also view him in the same way. His true strength will only be understood when both parties fight. Your Excellency, thank you. Jia is a little uncomfortable. In order to prevent any divine being from misunderstanding that I have different intentions, I specially chose a place in the wilderness to practice. I didn't expect that you would disturb people's dreams. I don't know how you want to compensate the loss caused by the interruption of my practice. The elder's eyes narrowed. They had not threatened him yet, but he did not expect that the other party would take the lead. He really didn't believe it. The other party would be in seclusion in a strange place and would really block all his five senses. That would be a fool. Therefore, the other party must know the cause and effect of the incident, but still say these words, which is to express his attitude. Friend, first of all, we did not intentionally break into your practice place, but to capture the gangsters. Secondly, this place is definitely not owned by you. If it is true, I had a contract with the giant tree, and this power is here. You can move freely within the radiation range of the giant tree. Based on the above 2 points, no matter how you say it, we are definitely on the right side. Jia Yan was already pacing and came to a distance that was only a few steps away from the opponent. Edisha and Xiao Yu brazenly ran away from the strong man in the big cloak and hid behind Jia Yan. During the whole process, the opponent he glanced sideways at the two of them, showing no intention of obstructing them from the beginning to the end. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. At least he has the posture of a strong man. How could he use a child as a threat? Of course, even if he makes any moves, Jia Yan will definitely take corresponding actions to stop him. The big bear, on the other hand, moved one step at a time and walked behind Jia Yan with a silly smile. When Jia Yan looked back suspiciously, he smiled in an extremely flattering manner. What a wonderful bear! Jia Yan didn't care whether he was taking advantage of the situation or not. All in all, the current situation was no longer just a bear problem. It's a matter of the other party not respecting himself as a strong person. Oh! Your Excellency said two things, which makes me a little bit unreasonable. But, no matter how reasonable you are, it is a fact that you almost ruined my practice. We cultivators regard the practice of practice as very important. Your Excellency, isn't it unclear? So I have 2 points. The cloaked elder's eyes flickered. Destroying someone's practice is sometimes a big problem, especially after reaching the Domain Lord stage. Under certain circumstances, if the person's practice is collided, it is difficult to directly impact the person to death, but it will cause the other person's practice to be directly stagnant, and the universe. When a strong person cultivates, he is really thinking about how to improve all the time. If you interrupt the opponent's cultivation path that may have been brewing for hundreds or thousands of years, it is not much different from killing your parents. In this way, it is not incomprehensible for the other party to be angry. 2 o'clock, please tell me. First, Your Excellency seems to be a powerful person. You and I will celebrate the festival in the way of the strong. If you win, I will hand over the bear to you, and everything will be forgotten. If you lose, your power must be very powerful, and you must have a lot of treasures and other things. I want you to have some objects, the level of which is as high as the sky water of the giant tree. What do you think? After hearing the 4 words water of the sky, Elder De Huo's eyes flickered even more solemnly. After staring deeply at Jia Yan, he asked hoarsely, what about the second one? Second. Jia Yan continued to smile amiably, it's very simple, just wait and get out, otherwise I will take action directly. How brave. You actually told the elder to get out. This person is simply arrogant. Before the elder in the cloak could say anything, the group of powerful men who followed behind him were all filled with jealousy, as if they were furious and wanted to fight Jia Yan himself. But everyone believed that if the elders were not here, no matter how arrogant Jia Yan said, they would not dare to fart. "Your Majesty, you have such a strong voice." The elder in the cloak waved his hand, and there was a sudden silence behind him. He slowly closed his eyes, then opened them again and looked at Jia Yan. "Since my friend is so confident, I will choose the first option. When was the last time I took action? It has been about 10 years, haha, I didn't expect that I would be in such a situation with you today. The fate between these two beings in the world is extremely miraculous. There are not many opportunities for a super strong person to take action, especially when maintaining power. If they want to find someone to discuss with, they have to consider the influence of power, so the possibility of them taking action is very small, unlike Jia people like Yan, who are at home in the world, wander around everywhere. Even if they provoke some strong people, they will just do it casually. At worst, they will just pat their butts and leave. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. No need to sigh, maybe this fight will not be what you think. Jia Yan's feet lit up. Behind them, Edisha and Xiao Yu are both retreated tacitly to avoid being harmed by Qi Yu, as did the monsters on the elder's side. The elder in the cloak stretched out his hand to grab the hilt of the sword on his back. It turned out that his weapon was a long sword. "I hope you really have special skills." The brilliance of Jia Yan's feet has become brighter and brighter, with a faint blue radiance blooming. "You will never let your friends down." Clang. When Jia Yan finished speaking, a dazzling bright light flashed across the sky and earth. In that moment, the two sides fought at lightning speed. Dang dang dang. Boom 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 boom. This piece of land seemed to have been blown up with a layer of soil. Between the flying sand and rocks, a large number of vegetation directly turned into thousands of cuts, and even part of it became gravel and disappeared between the sky and the earth. It can be seen how terrifying the fluctuations between the two sides are. Edisha held the little fish's scales and asked her to hide behind her. The two little kids almost couldn't even scream. Sure enough, friends are not just people who live in vain. In the sky, two figures were as fast as lightning, and their figures were already vaguely visible. There was a relieved smile in Jia Yan's words, but there was a bit of disappointment in this smile. "However, you should not have reached the lower level yet, which makes me a little disappointed. The implication is that the other party still has a false reputation." You. Above the sky, just as the angry words of the big cloaked elder broke out, a blue light suddenly cut through the sky, as if tearing the earth apart. When a huge earthquake like the roar of a sword caused everyone's chests to tighten so hard that they almost vomited blood. Along with this huge earthquake, a long sword was seen spinning and flying into the sky, then bounced far away and inserted into the ground, leaving only half of the sword's hilt on the surface. The cloaked elder stood in the air covered in blood, his breath already wilted. Elder! Rescue the elder quickly. How could it be possible? The elder is the loser. The enemy soldiers below were all in despair. Some of them lost their minds and even wanted to rush into the sky to rescue the elder in the cloak who was pointed at Bayato. "Don't do anything." The roar of the elder in the cloak sounded, but the roar was a little out of breath, even a little weak. He looked at the foot in front of him, and then looked deeply at the owner of the foot. His eyes were a little embarrassed and a little complicated. After a while, seeing the other party's half-smiling expression, he felt miserable and apologized to Jia Yan with fists in his hands. "I'm sorry, I didn't expect, Your Excellency, to be a truly powerful person." Jia Yan stared at this powerful man indifferently, and was a little surprised when he heard this and asked, "Really powerful man? What do you mean?" The other party had been locking Jia Yan's gaze, and after reading the confusion in Jia Yan's eyes, he finally came to his senses. It turns out that my senior is not our southern superstar. No wonder he is practicing in seclusion in such a deserted place. But I accidentally bumped into the true face of a truly powerful person. I don't know if we are lucky or unlucky. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Jia Yan did not reply to his words, but continued to point at his throat with his foot while looking at him with his eyes. Obviously this meant to let him continue talking. Senior, we and other Southern Star cultivators have many so-called lower-level powers at various levels. However, the vast majority of them are fake powers like me. Of course, in as far as we are concerned, we are powerful. We have just stepped into the lower level of the Senior Domain Lord's peak. It turns out that's the case, Jia Yan thought. No wonder. When the elder appeared just now, he realized that the opponent was strong, but in any case, he did not feel like a formidable enemy like when he saw the giant tree. Of course, some strong people with some skills in concealment can also do similar concealment, so Jia Yan didn't be too careless before taking action just now. It's just that the expert will know if it is there as soon as he takes action. When he really takes action, Jia Yan is relieved. The opponent's strength is not very dangerous to Jia Yan. Are there fake powerful people? Are there many fake powerful people like you, Southern Star? There are many, like Crucian carp crossing the river. Then, what about true power? Like me, and that giant tree-like existence. The other party was silent for a long time, and then said quietly, Senior, maybe our Southern Star is slightly different from other places. Here, the number of lives is as vast as grains of sand, and the strong ones are even more numerous. However, the cultivators have reached the level of the Senior Domain Master. At the lower level, many have no way forward, so when it comes to Senior Domain Lords at the lower level, and even fake great powers like us, they are all in huge numbers. However, like the seniors and the giant tree seniors, the actual number of great powers is very small. It may still be a little more than the Northern Superstar and the Western Superstar, but it is far from being comparable to the number of fake great powers. Maybe the gap will be more than 10,000 times. Jia Yan also fell silent. 10,000 times. In other words, in this Southern Superstar, the unique cultivation atmosphere and the vast sea of cultivation resources are enough to cultivate a large number of fake powers. A large number of Senior Domain Lords can really become a territory Lord Queen like myself. Does the great power of the Order exist, but it is as few as stars? 1 in 10,000? This ratio is difficult for even Northern Superstar to achieve. On the one hand, it shows the terrible cultivation background of Southern Superstar. On the other hand, it also seems to be vaguely revealed. It seems that the lower level of Territory Lord is better than imagined. The middle one is harder to reach, at least it seems that the resource impact is not that big. The ratio between the top Senior Domain Lords of the North Superstar and the lower level Domain Lords is probably only 1,000 to 1. This South Superstar has abundant resources, but it has reached a terrifying ratio of 10,000 to 1, which is staggering. Then, why do you call yourself mighty if you are not a powerful person? Haha, Senior, we are suffering. It is not too difficult to cultivate to become a Senior Domain Lord. However, many people with excellent talents are stuck at the Senior Domain Lord level. Countless predecessors have tried to gain access but have not entered. And finally had to die with hatred because of his old age. Therefore, due to various legends, coincidences, and word-of-mouth transmission from a large number of people, I don't know when the South Superstar began to have the term fake great power, although the strong men in other star regions laughed at us, this has become a trend. If I don't claim to be a mighty, I'm afraid it will be inconvenient to go out, so I will just follow them. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant mosquito. Jia Yan thought about it again without changing his expression. Well, finally thinking about it, is the entire southern superstar deceiving itself? Naiubi. However, southern superstar sounds like this, and it may indeed be slightly different from other superstars. In Biostar, he had never heard of a bunch of strong men stuck at the senior domain master level, but he had heard that many domain owners were stuck at the senior domain master level. Although Jia Yan has never set foot in the two major superstars of the East and West, judging from rumors, it is estimated that the situation is not much different from that of the North superstar. Chapter 16 Fake Power. Come to Cheateon.com to subscribe.